Home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hiya. It's the 27th day of the 7th month of 2021. Welcome to the Situation Room. It's the 7th minute of the 6th hour and the 17th second.
Today is that day, CT.
Good morning, Ndu.
Eric. Mambo.
Poor.
How are you? Imagine I've not seen you since yesterday.
Yeah, Sindio. Sheesh, man.
Good grief.
It's a long time.
No. Somehow we shall survive.
Buana. Siti Muga.
Yes, Eric Latif.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good to see you.
Asante sana ndugu. Sister, how are you?
Mzuri sana sugar mambo.
Sheesh.
Okay. Endelea tu kuongea na wazee hivyo.
Now, Mr. Muga, you appeared in somebody's dream last night. Vincent says, good morning. In a dream last night, I met Mwalimu Muga. After he stops the car engine, he calls me by my nickname, only to realize that the friends that he was with are my friends too.
Okay, what's his nickname?
Reverend Eric, kindly interpret the dream.
Oh, thank you. Reverend Eric Joseph.
There'll be 7 seasons of harvest and 7 seasons of drought.
There'll be 7 fat cows
The 7 hot cows.
7 skinny ones.
and 7 really skinny ones.
Your friend shall be his friend.
Yes. And to make that particular dream real, those 7 cows can be found in northeastern province, where they're currently experiencing a drought.
So, Vincent, your nickname shall now no longer be, your name will no longer be Vincent.
No. But it will be drought.
Bas.
I'll wash both of you.
Interpretation.
That's interpretation of
Well
that
done.
dream.
Okay.
You wait. You know, people laugh now. Right?
However,
Yeah. And then they sell you off.
And before you know it, you're there for 100 years.
but you then could become a governor.
They sell you off just because you interpreted a dream.
Prime
Then
Minister.
you
They
eventually
will
become prime
find
minister.
you when you are prime minister.
By the way, it is a lovely dream. You dream, the person has a vehicle. It's a good dream, that one. At least I have a vehicle in that dream. And in that dream,
You have
there
friends.
are friends who also happen to be his friends. Yes.
And you even know him so well, you know him by his nickname.
Yes, which also means that we share common friends. And we share a common program.
Yeah.
It's called the Situation Room.
Yeah.
At SpiceFM.
Basically. Vincent, weka namba yako hapo mwalimu wa kutumia kakitu. What are friends for?
Oh, really?
Kama uwezi nunulia mtu chai asubuhi hii yote hii.
Shwari na hii baridi yote.
Na hii baridi yote hii. Shwari.
Ambaye iko Nairobi.
And you
Why
even
are
know
you
his
there?
name.
And then why are you there?
Why am I his friend?
Why are you his friend?
Surely.
So Vincent, weka nini hapo? Tuone. We'll see to it that your dreams come true. No matter where you're from, all dreams are valid.
Wow.
The man of God has spoken.
Let's have a conversation today. So we will be talking. Schools reopened yesterday.
They did.
When are Form 1s reporting?
on the 2nd of August.
Higher. So those who are going to Form 2, 3, 4 have gone to
4th of
Form 2,
August,
3,
sorry.
4. And then the Form 1s report on the 4th of August.
3rd.
The
August
3rd.
3rd is Monday, yes.
The 3rd of August. All in all, there's a small matter of school fees. And there's a whole conversation that we need to have with that. And we'd like you to tell us how it is with your school. Have you received this? Apparently, schools are now, you get the official school fees invoice, and then another one called an addendum, or whatever you want to call it, that comes on the side and doesn't have even the school logo or emblem, and tells you, by the way, we need this other kind of money as well. Tusaidie tafadhali. Unajua ni kujangana hii. Watoto ni wetu. Watoto ni wetu, lazima tuwasomeshe. You know? So we'll have that conversation at 7. And then we've been talking about this for a while. The Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Railways, and the Kenya Pipeline have now been placed under one roof. And the person who's the head of that roof will be joining us at 8 o'clock. John Gumi, the chairman of ICDC, will be with us today. We'll have a conversation about that. Has that match ended? Kenya Rugby?
I don't know. No, it's
The
just
Olympics.
about right now, actually.
At the Olympics?
We're getting there. Started at 5:30 this morning.
Well, this one's showing us boxing and it's
Kenya
still
playing
Kenyans.
Ireland. So we'll see. And then the Malkia Strikers take on South Korea this afternoon.
We're way in volleyball.
Yes.
Those one will beat.
Uh-huh.
Tutachapa kama Brukenge.
Wow.
3 o'clock.
3:45.
Bas. This is it.
45.
This is it. So at 9 o'clock, we'll have a conversation about sports management. We touched on it yesterday. You know, looking at all the other federations that then contribute their players to the National Olympics Committee, that we take our team to Olympics, and how they're managed. And management of all these federations and what's happening with them, and how then we can make sure that we have better sports management in the country. We'll have somebody who's an expert on sports management joining us at 9 o'clock. But let's start with COVID.
Let's do that. All right. Looking at the global numbers now, 195,345,791. That's what we're looking at for numbers around the world. Okay, I want to look at something very quickly. We had been told that in the month of July, Tanzania would be telling us about more of the numbers.
Right.
However,
Giving COVID updates.
yes, giving COVID updates in terms of what's going on. However, that has not yet happened.
President Samia Suluhu Hassan aliwacheza Kiswahili. Sijali.
Said-
Naomba tutulie tafadhali. Naomba tafadhali tuelewane.
We wear masks and all. But
Naomba tafadhali mwelewe ya kwamba tutawaambia. Muda ukituruhusu tutawaeleza. Muda usipoturuhusu hatutawaeleza.
sasa sahi muda
By the way,
muda bado
I
haujaturuhusu.
go a little slowly, speaking Kenyanese here, of course, on that matter. You know why? We spoke about, we referred to the president of Tanzania not very long ago, and I was of this opinion that when somebody is not elected president and you ascend to that seat by virtue of your boss having passed away, the people you're working with are your boss's people, not yours. They are people your boss placed there. And so the agenda you're working with is your boss's agenda. When people make those statements, they're not facetious. They're real. And so any decision that is being made, it is trying to fit in what you think you ought to do and what already had been set. It is, President Suluhu's position is not an easy one.
it can't be.
It's not an easy one. Because here she is. And remember, yes, CCM and the machinery that it has determined who was going to be the next president. Remember, there was a debate of who will be. Will it be her? Will something else happen? But it is her. I am certain, just as I am certain I'm sitting on this chair and I'm speaking into this microphone, people have to arrive at a consensus when certain decisions are made. Okay, this is what you will do, this is what we'll do, this is what we'll expect. And some of the things we see playing out, that's what informs us about probably what had been discussed and agreed upon.
You know, let's also not forget that she was part of that team. When you say all these other men and women are Magufuli's men and women, She is also one of Magufuli's men and women.
She is.
Right? And there's nothing at all in the Magufuli 5 years or 6 that indicated that she was different from everybody else. So just seeing her in office and expecting that she's going to be radically different.
Because she is one of those men and women.
Yes.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah. When all those things were happening, not wearing of masks and all, judges were wearing masks.
She was among them.
She wasn't wearing a mask.
I agree with you, Eric. I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. As you're speaking, what came to my mind was our former president, Kibaki. A man who, during the Moi era, is quoted as having said that trying to remove Moi from power, here I'm paraphrasing, is like trying to cut a mugumu tree with a razor blade. Okay, meaning an impossible feat. Okay? If you ask me, that was former President Kibaki playing politics and acknowledging a reality. This president is in power and they're the ones in power. Now, when he became president, he was elected president, there are many changes he brought about. We speak about them every other day. He was elected. He was now president. He could now make the changes because he had been elected.
Yep.
It's a totally different kettle of fish.
Yep.
Well, this is a real wait and see kind of moment, yeah?
And remember, she said she will follow the Nyayo. When she's first addressed Parliament as president, she said, what we are doing here is tutafuata Nyayo za mpendo wetu Magufuli. It's just like Moi in 1978. He said, we'll follow Nyayo. Did you see radical changes in Moi's administration immediately after that?
No, you didn't.
Because he was intent on, let's continue. He was the vice president for many years.
So he was part and parcel of that caboodle, wasn't it?
True. Look, very quickly at Kenya's cases. Kenya's positivity rate is now at 13.5%. 550 cases recorded yesterday. 7 people have been reported dead. This is over the last 1 month. And there are concerns right now that ICU facilities are filling up once again. Teachers are worried right now. I mean, we'll look at this later. But teachers are worried about COVID, children coming back to school. As the schools closed a week ago, we did see a couple of schools that had reported cases of COVID amongst the students and then had to essentially be shut down. We are also then looking at higher numbers. We've not been able to come down below 500 cases in Kenya in the last few days. And there are concerns that these numbers could rise significantly so in the coming days. So that's what we're looking at in the country at the moment.
Let's take a break then. 18 minutes after 6. Live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz,
Cloudy conditions this morning in
neo
Nairobi at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's cloudy in Nyeri at 11. We'll see highs of 18 today. 20 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's raining lightly at 14 degrees. It's also 14 and raining in Eldoret. We'll see highs of 21. We'll look at highs of 28 in Kisumu. It's mostly cloudy at 18 and 16 and mostly cloudy in Kakamega with highs of 26. It'll come down to lows of 17. 23 will be the low in a rainy Mombasa at 22 this morning, going to highs of 28. We'll also see 28 as the high in a mostly clear Malindi at 23. It's 23 and partly cloudy in Kampala with highs of 26 and lows of 18. Partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 20 with highs of 30. It'll come down to lows of 21. It's 1 degree in Johannesburg. Chitter chatter. Highs of 15 and lows of 2. Today, cloudy conditions at 24. Highs of 29. 30 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's clear at 21. The summer months and monsoon season continues out in the east. Beijing is raining at 25. Highs of 27 and lows of 23. It's raining in Paris at 18 with highs of 21. It'll come down to lows of 15. Mostly cloudy conditions in London will give way to rain later. Highs of 22, lows of 16. And still Monday night in New York, clear skies at 27. They'll wake up to warm temperatures through Tuesday of highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, it's 21 minutes after 6. Who is online?
Everybody, it would appear. The Duke of Nandi says he's still tuned in from Kisumu and says good morning to you. Vincent Omondi tuned in from Kisumu and, okay, from Gitiha. Hey, Gitiha. Githunguri, Kiambu County. That's where Kioi Kimingi is tuned in from. Baby Nice Torres is listening from Mombasa. Kev Kipsang says, good morning, guys. Loving the show from Nanyuki. Tuned in till the end. Asante Sana. Kev Santana says, good morning. Nanyuki is also online from Kev. And Phil F.A. Collins says, good morning. Wanted to know about my name yesterday. He says he's Kenyan, born in Nandi. And Philip is his baptism name. Collins represents his official English name, and Efe, I'm going to say Efe, because that's the way we pronounce it in Nigeria, represents his daughter. Well, that's nice to know. Derek Nyakwa Ofiro is tuning from Kaimos in Vigia County. Otieno Odero is tuning from the Great Wall of Kino. Amy Flipped is tuning from Kathmandu. Anganathi Sakiwe Dakada is tuning in from Southern Africa. It would be interesting to know which part of Southern Africa that is. All the way from the coast is where Kijana Polo is. Celestina War is tuning from the UAE. And Stanley Stan says, good morning to CT Eriko and Indu from Juja. Jamaica, hello. Janelle Ashley Lindo, very Jamaican name actually. Adonis Victor is watching from Spain, and Vincent Ogutu is tuned in as well. Kakamega is tuned in, that's where Edna is. Charity's in Nakuru. Babu Wamjini is tuned in as well. Martin Kamau. Adonis, yes, we've said hello to you. Number one hype man, David Kiare Wasubukia, is tuned in this morning as well. And Bishogoro Omokaya tuned in from Getari. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.
Welcome, everybody, from Nairobi to the world. CT, today's proverb.
A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
Somali proverb.
Rest of the time, you make do with what's there.
Or assuming this person didn't jump off. Just say.
You know, when people wrote proverbs, they weren't aware that they're going to be subjected to all this philosophical debate.
Surely.
But, the dawn of a new era, I think it is good that it's subjected to debate.
Yes.
It is good if it's subjected to philosophy.
A bridge is repaired only
When somebody has fallen into the water.
Okay. So it's fallen. Fallen.
Not
So
jump.
there's-
Not enters or jumps.
Fall.
Fall.
As in, had not intended to be in the water, but because the bridge is in disrepair, somehow the bridge is responsible for their falling.
Yes.
Ni sawa.
Umekubali? Ni sawa. Now, Benjamin Ayimba must be turning in his grave. We've lost to Ireland, Kenya Sevens at the Olympics. Kenya 7, the Republic of Ireland 2. Yes, it's a republic. 12. Kenya 7, Ireland 12.
So we're out.
Yeah.
Basically, we've consistently lost.
3 matches in a round robin. Yes.
We are done. That's it. After our game, the next match was USA playing somebody, and USA apparently are playing some beautiful rugby. Who's their coach? A man called Mark Friday. Mark Friday was once our coach here.
Yes, he was. Until things could not be agreed in terms of sports management, which again we'll be discussing today. Certain lines then crossed, not drawn, not even considered.
And
so he left
remember,
back to his home country.
Not
and
only
voila.
that, during the time of his tenure, that's arguably the seventh
best.
rugby really picked up.
Played probably some of the best rugby Kenya has ever
Yes.
played under his leadership.
Yes.
Truth be told.
We actually got into the world map during that tenure. Ayimba took over and also continued to do wonders.
Ni sawa. Mungu yuko. Mungu mbele. Let's take a look at the headlines. Yeah. Kalonzo has said, Mungu mbele, aliyopita si ndwele. Finally, Wiper has resolved to pull out of the NASA coalition. Too little, too late. That's a Question by the Nation. Not even a last-minute concession by ODM to share the political party's funds could salvage the political dalliance that saw Raila and Kalonzo run for the presidency on a joint ticket twice. Wiper MPs rejected ODM's overtures and resolved to withdraw the party from the NASA coalition. It's a headline also in the Standard. Raila backs down as Kalonzo quits NASA. So basically, ODM has resolved, all right, so we've been receiving this money from the Register of Political Parties, and the conversation has been, but we have the majority of MPs. We are the ones who are receiving money because we are the biggest party in that house. But now they are like, okay, now, we acknowledge that we have brothers who tagged along, and because of our agreement and our arrangement, we agreed never to field candidates in competing zones. So probably, that's how we ended up, So let's give you a little bit of what we have received. But I don't know whether Wiper is saying kaa nayo, or whether they'll take the money and say, asante lakini, tupatane mbele.
When politicians speak, I have difficulties taking everything they say at face value.
Mm-hmm.
Enormous difficulty. Because they flip-flop so very often that even if with every flip and flop you're turning your head, you'd have a neck ache. So now this new declaration, the question I would ask is, and then what? What are the options?
They're going to One Kenya Alliance. One Kenya Alliance, which comprises so far of KANU, Wiper, ANC. All right? And they're telling ODM, by the way, you can come and join One Kenya Alliance. Don't be alone like that.
Don't stand there by yourself. We have this new thing.
Come.
Nice shiny
I
toy.
think
Come play.
you have answered the question that I was raising by not raising. Okay? So what's the difference here?
The difference is CORD and NASA.
Yes.
There's a new member.
Yeah, so we
In
move,
CORD.
we are now called One Nation Alliance.
Yes.
Okay. And then we bring in the same person whom we said we had parted ways with. So what has changed?
The name.
The name.
That's it.
And the membership. Remember, like in CORD.
Because now you brought in KANU.
KANU is in
Yes.
it.
They were not there before.
Okay. So you've added.
CORD didn't have Musalia's party. Right?
Yes.
Then Musalia's party in 2013 was not even ANC. It was something different. Then in 2017, Musalia has ANC.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we call it NASA.
But I hear what CT is saying.
And it
you know.
joins.
You had
Now
fruit-
we
you
have
had-
KANU.
No, but you had fruit punch.
So we call it OKA.
You had fruit punch that was oranges, apples, and lemons. Now you have fruit punch that's oranges, apples, lemons, and grapes.
Yes.
It's still fruit punch, according to CT, right?
No.
It's still fruit punch, no?
No.
It's
You
the
call
same
it
fruit
different.
punch. All they've gone and done is added bananas.
Yeah.
That's all they've done.
Yes.
But it's still fruit punch. Okay?
It's still fruit punch, but
As
now
far
it's
as
a
I'm
different
concerned,
name.
as far as I am concerned, it's the same mind games that they play with us. There changes. What changes?
It's the same people.
This is a case, it's the same forest, it's the same monkeys. There is no difference here. Just because there was one monkey swinging in some other branch, it's the same forest. And sooner or later, that monkey was going to join the others. No difference whatsoever. But if there is a change that you see, perhaps you can inform me.
I can't say I'm with you here, CT. I don't know any mind-boggling, mind-shifting, earth-shifting change here.
No.
What is it?
And as for the issues dividing
saying-
the spoils,
What? Just because you've taken the same thing and you slapped a different name on it, and then you've had a few people join you. What's the difference?
this
Same
one is
people
not even a
who've been there
few,
for the
it's
last
one
3
person.
decades.
Try again.
Let it come out.
Mumble a little bit
It's a
more.
difference.
Of course they are.
Yes, there
They're
is.
different in the same way.
Yeah.
I think it's the French who said it well. The more things change,
The more they stay the same.
Say it.
plus
Ça
ça
plus, ça
change,
plus. Say.
plus
ça
ça
change,
même
plus la même
chose.
chose.
Yes. By the time even I know that one, believe me,
Eh?
it's not new.
Same.
Same.
Yeah,
Same
come
script, different
on.
cast.
But then you will say, you there rubbing your hands together in some kind of anticipated heat, saying that things now have changed because it's a kuna.
And the issue of dividing the spoils, I think ODM played this one beautifully. Yes.
Keeping all the spoils.
Yeah. Look, it's always a bargaining chip. Which political party doesn't need money? Okay? And this is nice money that is actually given just for political parties. Keep it. And then when you get to a point where you need to discuss certain things in greater earnest, say, okay, guys, what we do? We'll give you a bit. Well, we're thinking you could give us no. We said a bit. Okay? Which part of a bit don't you understand? We are still the bigger party. Yes. We still have more members.
They've been told Kaini Nayo.
No. I would like to see that one coming out clearly that Wiper have declined to accept. That one, when I see that one, I will say, good. It's not that anything will have changed. All they'll be doing is actually positioning themselves to bargain yet again.
So One Kenya Alliance will basically now have ODM.
Yes, no.
Yes. But it'll now be called One Kenya.
One Kenya
Alliance.
Yes. Because we're looking at One Kenya. And the others will be the Hustler Nation.
Oka.
Yes. Oka.
Come here.
28 minutes to 7. Let's take a break. See what's happening on the roads. Is it One Kenya? Or is it not? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. Get NCBA SME business solutions tailored to your business and start counting the special memories. NCBA Bank. Go for it. NCBA Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, let's look at what it looks like on the roads this morning. We have some traffic on Mombasa Road heading out to the city. An accident on Thika Road, unfortunately, but not too bad right now. Okay, it's flowing. On Jogo Road, we're getting out into the city at Landis without too much of an issue. And we still do see some of that heavy traffic right around Imaradaima on Mombasa Road heading out into the city. It's also clogging up in some parts on Langata Road. It shouldn't be too terrible right now. Bunyala Road, then getting to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout also is quite some. Landis out into the city as well looks clogged up. It's building up on Langata Road, not too terrible at the moment. Coming out of Muthaiga, getting towards the Pangani underpass, also some traffic. So we're looking at it just waking up. It's probably going to come out with a big bang in a short while. Let's keep an eye out for that in different parts of the city. Talk to us should it get too crazy and we can at least spread the word or find an alternate route for you as well. SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
By the way, if you have
94.4.
would like to access the standard e-paper, just dial star 55. It's 55 what? It's 550 star 1 hash, and you get the standard
you were
e-paper.
asking me because you wanted me to answer.
Indeed.
Oh, okay.
Standard e-paper for 20 bob daily, or star 550 star 2 hash for the Nairobian for 20 bob daily, star 550 star 3 hash for the daily newspaper pullouts for 5 bob daily. This comes from your airtime and it's deducted on a daily basis. Today's pullout is the Mambo ya Pesa financial standards. What else are you looking at?
So, 72 years in jail. Gachagwa's graft battle is what is being reported by The Nation. Mathira MP Rigathi Gachagua, once a close ally of President Kenyatta, had to throw that in, of course, is staring at a jail term of up to 72 years should the state prove the 6 corruption charges leveled against him. In charges drafted by the DCI and approved by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the former administrator could face a fine of at least 30 million shillings. Mr. Gachagua is accused of acquiring 7.3 billion from proceeds of crime between 2013 and 2020. The counts include conspiracy to commit an offence of corruption, fraudulent acquisition of public property, conflict of interest, money laundering, and acquisition of proceeds of crime. The prosecution has pegged the first 3 charges in the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, where Mr. Gachagua could face up to 10 years in jail for each count. All right. The other 3 are premised on the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, where he could face a total of 42 years. So this is where the total of 72 comes from. The state has preferred 3 charges against this under this act, 2 on money laundering and 1 on acquisition of proceeds of crime. Section 16 of the act states that a person convicted for any of the offences leveled against Mr. Gachagua is liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 14 years or a fine not exceeding 5 million shillings. It also recommends an alternative penalty for a fine of the amount of the value of the property involved in the offence, whichever is higher, or both.
Okay.
So,
what are these monies? Where is he accused to have taken the money from?
well, okay, so there are a number. We're not being told the details of such. However, he joins the long list of politicians and public officers fighting graft charges. Serious MP, for example, who was last year sentenced because of this whole debacle with the NCBP, PB, and he and 9 others are yet to be arrested, although they have been summoned to appear before the anti-corruption court at Milimani on the 3rd of August. They include Mathira CDF manager William Mwangi Wahome, who is also chairman of the Tana Water Works Development Agency, and Duta Ruo, Julian Jahenda Maka, and Samuel Muremi Ireri.
The Standard has the details.
Okay, there we go.
Page 8 of what the counts are. In count 1, Gachagua is charged with conspiracy to commit an offence of corruption, alleged that he defrauded the county government of Nyeri 27.4 million shillings in between May 2015 and December 2016. In the second charge, he is accused of fraudulently acquiring 6 million shillings from the Nyeri Provincial General Hospital for supply of dialysis machines. He faced 2 other counts of money laundering, alleging that he received 112 million shillings from Bungoma and Kwale counties and engaged in transactions to conceal the money trail. Between 2013 and 2020, you fraudulently received 7.3 million shillings through 7.3 billion shillings through 3 bank accounts registered under the name of Rigathi Gachagua, domiciled at Rafiki Microfinance, while knowing that the money formed part of proceeds of crimes. So the Assets Recovery Agency had filed a suit to compel the MP to forfeit 202 million shillings to the state for being proceeds of crime and money laundering. And they were saying that they were looked at his accounts. They found some funny transactions amounting to 7.3 billion shillings and a credit of 12.5 billion shillings between 2013 and 2020. In 7 years, some 12 billion shillings has passed through these accounts. His co-accused are William Mwangi, Andrew Taj, Julian Jahenda, Samuel Moremi, Grace Wabui, Lawrence Kimaru, Irene Wamboi, and David Nguru. Those failed to appear in court. Imagine. You're talking about, just a couple of billions here, billions there, 7 billion here.
Actually, that's the turnover. It's not as though there was 7 billion domiciled in the account, but over a period of time, that amount of money, yes.
It was passing through, and you're accused now of having actually received that money, and it was proceeds of crime, and that's money laundering. My friend, this is Kenya. This is Kenya. So he was released on bail and bond.
Yes.
By evening, bail, bond paid out.
Yes. Come back on the 3rd of August.
Yeah.
Bail 12 million, bond 25 million.
Out.
Out.
Yeah.
No problem.
Cash of 12 million, cash, 12 million cash. Chani and Davina come.
Bond 25.
Place bond. He's out. This weekend, ngoja musikie.
There's not a... You know what I sometimes marvel at? Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of J.M. Karaoke in a sense. J.M. Karaoke was Jomo Kenyatta's personal assistant at some point. Now, what that means is he was privy to a lot of information. Now, J.M. Karaoke was also a wealthy man, owned land. Okay? But the business that J.M. Karaoke did, that you could say, okay, he makes shoes, he supplies water, you really couldn't point to, but he was well-to-do. Okay? Now, he became a people's champion and started talking about land distribution and things that... What he was talking about was genuine. But if you've been privy to that information by virtue of your position and proximity, and one could even argue the wealth that you have acquired could be arguably acquired because of your proximity to power.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then you then seek to work against this power.
Right.
Okay? All I'm saying is that sometimes when we listen to the things that politicians say and the things that they do, okay, it often has very little to do with what you're actually being told. It has to do with some disagreement somewhere, and it often has to do with money. Something didn't quite go the way it ought to have gone, and some money was involved. So, now that we hear this case, I listened and I read about some of the things that this gentleman, the MP for Madira, Rigathi Gachagua, said, well, he worked for Uhuru, he did the other. He was a DO. Now, I was listening and I was thinking, when you've been that close to power, is it the prudent thing for you to keep talking about the things that you know and the things, because immediately there'll be the things you also did. You may not talk about it, but they will come out.
Sure. It's very difficult to be able to
How about
hide,
you just don't do some
hide.
things?
Well,
No, in this case, they're
in
done.
this case, they've already been done. We're looking at historical.
If you know you've
activity.
done,
If you know you've done, in other words, this is where you would hope people say, "Cat got your tongue," as in, keep quiet.
in some cases, keeping quiet could lead you to losing everything.
It could.
Because you're forced, for example, maybe in a particular case, you may be forced to choose a side. You're either here or you're there. If you're there, woe unto you if I become the one. Then I'll remind you what you did by abandoning me.
It is a political gamble that very, very many people have staked their lives on. And unfortunately, there's often no soothsayer who can tell you what the future is really going to hold or who is going to come to power. Can you imagine the number of people who ate humble pie when Kibaki became president? Just think about it for a single second. The guy had been declared dead, buried, meaning forget, he can never be. He was. And then, suddenly...
Like a phoenix.
Yes, there are people who I am sure suddenly became the most religious people we could actually come across on the planet. Yes.
And they did a turnaround.
Complete.
And you know, that's the thing. In Kenya, the thing that you want to do is make sure that you're playing in the political space.
Yes.
And you do not stay quiet. Why is it that we are seeing very many people who are in business getting into politics to protect?
Yes.
You get into that, as long as you're playing this game, you're protected. You stay out there and you're keeping quiet, they'll come for you. You're here and you're playing the game, you're protected. So this one, we'll go through court. Kwani watu wangapi wamewako na kesi kotini? Watu wengi. We are being persecuted. Oh, this court has... So what? You are safe.
You know...
Stay out there, my friend.
It isn't... I wasn't referring to staying out. I was referring to staying in that space. And here I'm probably speaking naively because I'm not in that space and I've never been an MP. I've never even presented myself to the electorate. But I was merely speaking academically. And I'm saying that sometimes when you've been part and parcel of a process and then you start talking, because essentially you're talking about the process. You start talking, you are talking about the process. You talk about the money, even if you don't mention it, you are shining a light where some people would prefer that light wasn't shone. That's really what I'm saying. And they're the same people you're working with. Now, the music may change, but the chairs will remain the same. So all I'm saying is, the people who play that game well, Eric, are those who are at the very top. They have been fully vaccinated to some degree. Okay, but anyone else, your fortunes are tied with the fortunes of somebody who's up there. And when things are thick, they will look after their interests, not yours.
Not yours.
Yes.
You'll be on your own.
You'll be on your own.
Let's take then this break. At 6:45, time for a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay. What's in the Business Daily?
Well, this one caught my attention. Safaricom bosses get 700 million free shares.
Okay.
Senior Safaricom managers were awarded 16.4 million shares in a current market with a current market value of 700 million for free in the year ended March as compensation for their performance.
Okay.
Why I'm saying I find this interesting and why I'm reading it is something that is normal with many corporations in the West. Okay? Other people give bonuses of cash. There are many organizations that give you a piece of the company as a bonus. And I know one particular company that had this policy in its early days, Microsoft. And when it started making money, suddenly managers, middle-level managers suddenly became millionaires.
Just like that.
As you put it that way, just like that. They became millionaires. Because Microsoft became what it was, and they had owned those shares for the longest time.
An ESOP is a good thing. An
is.
employee share ownership plan.
It's a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good thing. Now, you want to ask, but...
So how do you qualify to be in the ESOP?
Yes.
At what level of management? How many years experience or what?
Yes. It's senior managers. But why this caught my attention was the country Kenya.
Yeah.
See, we are actually shareholders in this company.
Yes.
All right? Now, imagine if our leaders understood this particular principle, okay? Not only sought our opinion, but ensured that the basic interests that we speak about were looked after. Can you imagine what the net worth of this country would be? Simply because these shareholders who are constantly and perennially ignored were in a position to actually do, the moment healthcare is taken care of, school isn't a problem. You then focus your energies on other things.
Right.
And these other things are ensuring that the economy is infinitely more vibrant than it is. Right now it can't be. It has to be limping because half the time we're busy dealing with basics, which the government could have taken care of.
Sure.
Yeah, this is what caught my attention.
I hear you saying that, and I'm wondering, is Citi saying that we should give our country's senior managers an ESOP?
No, I am saying...
If Kenya performs well, the senior management, that is the president, maybe his cabinet, maybe blah, 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 get a certain percentage
the
of
senior
stake
managers,
in the country.
The senior management, by the way, it is true that you're thinking that way. Those aren't the senior management in this equation. The senior management is us.
We are the shareholders.
No, we're the owners.
We're getting dividend.
Yeah, no. We are the owners.
Yes, we're getting dividend.
Not
Senior
only-
managers are those ones now who are doing the every
running
day,
around.
They're
The
running
legwork.
around, the legwork to make sure
yes.
that this is still a going concern and a profitable one as
The
such.
thing is,
So we give them something as an incentive.
if there is something that is worthy of an incentive, it is arguable that the dividends are also noteworthy. Yes. So we, the owners of the company, would also be benefiting. And so we would not complain if our servants were given a little more incentive.
A little something.
We would not complain. But here, they take the incentive without our consent, and they keep taking the incentive without our consent, and they give, whether it is a car loan, a car grant, a house grant, or an additional pay, those are the equivalent perks. And without our consent. And yet, we are the employers.
We are the shareholders. It's our company.
Near to. Yes. And they're our employees.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there's a risk of COVID-19 spread in schools as teachers skip the jab. Fears of COVID-19 infections breaking out in schools were heightened yesterday after it emerged that a majority of teachers and their learners are not fully vaccinated against the disease. 7 out of every 10 teachers are not fully vaccinated against the virus, and only 5 out of every 10 have received the first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. This was a report that was revealed by the Health Ministry. The ministry missed its target to administer the jab to 330,000 teachers in the first phase from March to June, only managing to fully vaccinate 89,611 as 158,000 others got the first dose. So the target was missed even after the government classified all teachers as a vulnerable group alongside medical workers, security forces, and the elderly. So school instructors are saying they are worried. Because they're also considered frontline workers, highly exposed to the virus, just as are millions of the learners that they attend to. So
why didn't they go for the vaccine?
That was my next question. So if you knew that this was a problem, why didn't you then go in that first stage? Because I remember we were talking about it at that point, and I was saying, teachers are not going, people are not going because they're not getting those reports. Then now you're saying you're worried, but you had an opportunity to go 2 months ago. Why didn't you?
Surely.
I don't get it.
Surely.
Why didn't you go?
Yeah. And it was very clear who needs to go for this first new vaccine. Teachers, category A. Security, category A. Healthcare workers, category A.
Go. Why didn't you go?
You did not go. You're only 300,000 of you.
I don't understand. And now they're saying they're worried because they're vulnerable.
So what do they want? So wanataka?
Wanataka wajabiwe.
Eh? See, they closed school last week but one. Was there a concern then? Last week but one when they were closing school?
No, yesterday there's concern because...
There was a concern, it just wasn't voiced.
Now they are voicing it?
There always was a concern, and there's still going to be a concern. Their concerns aren't going to end soon.
Okay, you go for the vaccine.
Just go get the jab.
Tafadhali, tukubaliane. The president is in the UK for a 3-day visit, which will see him co-chair the Global Education Summit with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. So this one is a scheme where the summit wants to raise some 500 billion shillings to educate children across the developing countries in the next 5 years. Why this is important is you've got to remember that the UK government has been an anchor, one of the anchors of the free primary education in Kenya. As soon as it was rolled out, UK government through DFID came in and said, all right, so we're going to support. And they put in money. Now, here we are. We're talking about some more money being raised. The president of Kenya is co-chairing this with the UK Prime Minister. That means of these 500 billion shillings that's going to the developing world, we're going to get some good amount. The question is, the money that has been spent so far on education since 2003 to date, right? So it was free education. We got enrollment, obviously went up. Now we have moved it over from just free education, said there's compulsory and automatic transition from primary to secondary, and that has continued. Some gains have been made. But in terms of the infrastructure of education, have we actually been able to improve that infrastructure of education? Can we say that the number of classrooms, desks, teachers, chairs, chalks, boards that we had in 2003 compared to 2011
Has there been improved
and
quality?
then look at how much money we've spent into it.
Yeah. So, improved quality of education, whether that's in resources or the actual content that is going out to learners, has it improved? Have you been able to see an increase vis-a-vis the money that has been spent?
And remember, education takes the lion's share of the budget every year.
Every year. And is increased year to year.
Yep. Have we actually been able to say, no, we're going to get some good amount of money. It's 500 billion. Let's just say, 100 billion is coming to us.
For education.
Just like that, it comes in. Can we really say that we have invested wisely this money? Have we spent it well? Or is the education ministry the other bastion of corruption?
It is, without a shadow of a doubt, because if every single year queries are raised about, one, the standards of the facilities that we keep speaking of, whether it's in the private sector or in the public sector, it's an issue that is raised. And we've heard the ministry talking about running audits, determining which schools. You see an effort, but you never hear of its completion. You hear of audits taking place. 5 years down the line, you never really hear the conclusion that was arrived at as a result of this. So if that money is being spent, apart from the capitation and the normal spending that we see, and even within that, we hear of complaints and we hear and we read of misdeeds. Okay? So where does this money actually go to? Because in all honesty, the amount you speak of ought to have changed and revolutionized the education system completely.
Easily $1 trillion, if not more,
Yes.
has gone into education since 2003.
Yes. $1 trillion shillings ought to have done something fantastic.
Yeah. A lot, because we're
Yes.
putting in money every year. There's a lot of money that there's a huge chunk of money that goes to infrastructure.
Yes.
Right? Every year.
Yes.
And it's sent to schools.
Yes.
Then there's CDF
Yes.
that claims to also be doing something in schools.
In infrastructure
In
also.
infrastructure.
And bursaries.
Right? And then there's all this other. So are we actually seeing?
And then there's a county government also that has its say in
Somewhere
yes,
in education.
So tell me, with all these monies being pumped into education, do you see anything that is representative of the monies that have been spent? The answer is no.
$1 trillion shillings is a lot of money. 1 trillion shillings is a lot of money.
It is.
It's a third of the national budget that's going to run the entire country. So if you're looking at $1 trillion shillings and what it
I'm
can
sure it's
actually
more.
do,
It is more.
$1 trillion shillings and what
It is more. All we're saying is,
and what it can do for it. I'm saying what it can actually
Actually
do
do.
for education in the country
Yep.
it would be phenomenal.
Eric, the new Nairobi hospital wing, the one which was put up with the help of the UN. Kenya shillings 1 billion.
1 billion.
That one. Okay? Which means that every county, 47 billion shillings would give you an equivalent of that facility in every county in this country. One. Okay? Now,
That facility in Makueni is just 300 million.
precisely. So, if you're talking about comparing the cost of what we know is the monies, I'm talking the cost as in the money that has actually been spent. And then you look at the projects to which the money ought to have been directed. Mismatch.
Total and direct.
Mismatch.
We'll segue this conversation into the next hour. As schools reopened yesterday and as people are still sending their children back to school, you're expected to pay school fees, and then we're asking ourselves, so you're paying school fees, and because it's supposed to be free, you're paying because you are doing infrastructure. That school fees is because the school is telling you we need money for infrastructure. And yet all this money goes into the education budget every year. Really?
So what are these things that the head teacher is actually asking for?
Well,
I'll
and
tell
how
you.
come we don't have?
I'll tell you.
All right.
Very
That's coming up in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Fears of COVID-19 infections breaking out in schools have been heightened as 73% of teachers haven't been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The Teachers Service Commission CEO Nancy Macharia has urged teachers to get vaccinated as schools reopen for the 2021 academic year. She further said it was important for the teachers to get vaccinated due to the high risk of infection to students they were teaching.
We are aware that with the return of the 15 million learners, resources will be more constrained. Yet, as teachers, we must adopt more innovative measures to ensure learners get quality teaching. All facilities that attend to our teachers should provide fast and quality services to our teachers and their dependents.
Also, President Uhuru Kenyatta is scheduled to attend a series of summits during his 3-day visit to London, England, which is taking place from today. Among those meetings is an education conference which aims to persuade various nations to raise 5 trillion shillings that will be used to fund students' education from disadvantaged nations over the next 5 years. Kenya High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Manoa Esipisu, says Kenya will benefit from the visit, where Uhuru will meet with various leaders, including Prime Minister Boris Johnson, to discuss trade, security, health and education.
The aim of that summit is to raise funds for education, especially for vulnerable people around the globe. A lot of this money has already been raised along the last few months. The president has been busy talking to fellow heads around the world, urging them to put money where their mouth is, to take action to protect their budgets for education, to take action to increase their budgets for education.
In what has been described as a last resort to try to prevent the NASA affiliates from relocating, ODM's Raila Odinga has finally agreed to split the alliance's funds. Odinga, who has been adamant that he doesn't owe IPA, Ford Kenya and NC funds, has written to the party's leaders in preparation for talks to split the NASA funds. Odinga said the decision was reached following a meeting at ODM headquarters, and he believed it would end the strong sparks that had been circulating about the money. This, however, comes as Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka formally exited his party from the alliance.
I have had a very useful consultation as Wiper Democratic Movement, culminating in our decision to exit NASA and welcome a new formidable coalition. I always knew there were extremists in ODM who are misleading Raila. When we sat and I showed him, and by the way, I made it very clear, these were the only discussions I had with Raila on the matter of political parties funding. And he agrees with me because he hadn't seen the salient clauses to which he affixed his signature.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Okay, so what does it look like right now, guys? Heavy traffic on Jogo Road, Makadara through to Kaloleni, out then past Sharimoy onto Landis Road today. We're seeing quite some all red coming off of Thika Road as well, right around Survey through to Pangani. The traffic is quite heavy headed into the city. We're looking at some traffic coming out of Mudangari as well, coming out of Westerns onto Waiakiwe. Until you get to Waiakiwe. Don't forget that the Red Hill bypass also can be used as an option to get out of the city, get out to the city rather. Also Langata Road, some traffic there already starting to build up, quite some all the way through from the turnoff at the Southern Bypass Exchange through to Wilson Airport out towards the Timor roundabout. Bagadi Way also will give some good reprieve today as you're trying to get out towards the City Mortuary roundabout. Looking at traffic coming off of Mombasa Road as well, a little bit, not too terrible right now though. So pockets of traffic wherever you look in the city. We'll keep an eye on things. We're now officially in traffic hour. See how that opens up in the next 30 minutes or so. Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. Accidents or incidents, let us know. We can spread the word about that as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yes, it is. And we're glad that you've chosen us to start your day. A very good morning to you. City, today's proverb.
A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
That's when you know that this bridge has a problem.
Yep.
The rest of the time, go about your business.
Well, see, the bridge is there.
Yeah, if the bridge wants us to know it has a problem, so it'll tell us.
Yes. And if it hasn't spoken,
The way it is telling you is when you fall
Yeah,
into the water,
when
my
it-
friend.
when it drops someone,
That is the way it's telling
sends
you
a
there's a
message.
problem.
Yes.
You can only relate to the woes of the bridge if there's a human cost to it.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, you will really not be in a position to understand.
You will not.
No, you won't.
You will not. So, Ndu,
Yeah.
this morning we want to do some rant and rave, okay? About this whole matter of the school fees. What's the issue?
Okay, so the school fees that's charged, regularly, normally, we expect that to happen. What is happening, however, is that there are some extra fees that are being charged by a number of schools. And some of them are illegal, according to the Education Ministry. Others, all right, we'll let them slip. So now parents will be paying fees for the third time in 7 months is what we're looking at now, as this new academic year begins. Started yesterday, some going to school today, as the government seeks to normalize the calendar, then going towards January 2023. Now, there have been fee structures that have been issued, but then there are additional, or should we call them supplementary fee structures that have been issued by some schools. And they're contravening the rules of the Ministry of Education. And what they look like is that they're separate demand slips. They do not have the logo of the school as the normal fee structures would have, and they don't have official stamps either. So they've resorted to recording payments in separate books of accounts, and the official receipts issued to parents do not include these charges. For instance, one of the stories that we've been given, the fee structure for a school in Nyeri County only requires parents to pay 33,250 shillings in the first term, just slightly less than the 35,000 recommended for the whole year for extra county accounts. It falls in the category that it falls under. Okay? The fee structure has the school logo and is signed by the principal. The fees for other terms is not indicated. However, when they were then issued, they were issued with another structure that doesn't have a date. It is not signed, and it is called a fee complement, which requires them to pay an extra how much? 68,500 per year, which is way beyond what national schools charge. The
An
figure
extra
for the
68,000.
Yes. So the figure for the whole year, and it's in quote, as approved by parents, the PTA, and the BOM, is given at 60,500. Slightly over half of what the fees for the year is. It's not one school, it's not two schools, it's schools across the country. This comes, or rather, it would fly in the face as what the commission, the Teacher Service Commission, is cautioning school heads against flouting fee guidelines. The chief executive, Nancy Macharia, said no child should be sent away for higher fees and cautioned that teachers found flouting fee guidelines will be punished. So it is clear coming from the TSC that this is actually not supposed to happen. And when we are seeing more and more cases of these fee structures that come unsigned, come undated and unstamped, then it is clear that somebody's doing something wrong. On the other side, teachers, head teachers are afraid, and they've openly said that if they do not do this, that they will not have enough funds for their infrastructure projects, for which they're not getting support from the national government. So, this is where we are now. They're supposed to be charging less because of COVID-19,
Uh.
having then been supported by the government, but this is not happening. And a lot of parents right now are crying that they are not able to pay this plus the extra fees that they've been asked for. For example, we saw a couple of weeks ago that those parents who had applied for their children to go into Form 1, should they not pay this supplemental fee, their children will not then be given a place in the schools that they had selected.
And this supplementary fee, what is it purposed for?
It's for things.
Infrastructure, completion of a dorm, purchase of a school vehicle.
This
you know.
particular school being quoted in this story has some 8,000 shillings for PTA syllabus fast-tracking program.
Okay. And a school what?
Huh?
You said they also want to buy a bus.
Yes, it happens in this case that you'll find that school transport, an additional vehicle is required. So this comes under. You can imagine a school with 1,000 students and everybody's paying this extra, 8,000 bob. You buy a nice looking vehicle.
I don't have a problem with their wanting to buy the vehicle and all that. That's really not the issue. What I need to understand is how it is this additional money is justified. Because everything that they are saying, with the exception of the vehicle, the government is supposed to provide for.
Now, this is what they're saying, that actually that and it is not being provided for. So now, if it can be justified, the reasons that they're giving is that the government is not providing the additional or the supplemental budget for them to be able to do this. And the only way that they can recognize or realize then these needs is to charge a little bit extra to the students and their parents to be able to get this. So if everybody adds a little bit more, collectively, they can then complete these projects. But on their own, they're not able to do that. Number two, there are a lot of parents who still are not paying because they've cited problems in terms of the economy. Things have been hard, COVID-19 and all of this. So they're not able to keep up with their payments. So the only way for them to realize this and keep afloat as institutions of learning is by charging extra. That's the excuse, or that's the reason that they're being given on their side. But the thing that parents are taking issue with, if it is so clear and if it should be so clear, why have these undocumented fee structures given?
Okay. We have very many people who are complaining of school fees just because, of the economic situation.
Yes.
Okay. Not many schools are doing this thing of extra school fees. Many schools are actually still charging the school fees in accordance with the circular issued by the Ministry of Education.
And some less.
Right? Even some less. Right? Even in accordance with that, they're saying this is the ceiling. Many are operating within that. But many parents are still complaining about, where we are right now and it needs to still pay school fees. I'm not able to meet this. So there's that hardship. Then there's the issue of the extra fees. City, maybe just make us understand, when the ministry issues a circular and says all national schools and extra county schools located in major towns will pay a maximum annual fees of 45,000 shillings. These are schools in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, Thika, Nyeri, and Eldoret. National and extra county, the school fees is 45,000. Sub-county schools, 35,000. And then the others, children with special needs, will now part with a maximum of 10,860 yearly. When your school is told you shall charge 35,000 shillings as school fees for the year, what does that money go to? What is the school fees used for?
Part of what the government gives you, the government has, I'm going to put in layman's terms, for instance, a feeding program. Because the school I'm chairman of is a day school. Okay? They have a feeding program. But the money that is given only caters for, say, 50% of what is actually required. So part of the fees also goes towards this.
Okay.
Part of the other fees, the fees also goes towards, we have board of management teachers, because not all the teachers we have in the school are Teacher Service Commission commissioned employees. Okay. Then you have other workers within the school compound who are required, who require payment and whom the school use. Meaning there is leeway that is given for the use. Okay. Now, when fees isn't paid, what it therefore means is that some of these basic services that the fees is supposed to help augment, okay? Remember, it doesn't cater for everything. The government actually pays for a good portion of it, all right? Now, every time you hear that the government is giving money, let's say for infrastructure development, the problem is sometimes not that the government doesn't give you the money. It's the time when the government gives you the money, okay? Oftentimes, there are delays. And the monies are given on the understanding of the needs. Now, the needs are based on the number of students that that particular school has. Okay? Now, you ask the question, when they say it is 12,000, 35,000, 40,000, what they mean is, yes, that is the most you can charge.
That's the ceiling is 35,000.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the most you can actually charge.
Okay.
And there isn't wiggle room.
And in this 35,000 that you receive from parents, you shall receive a certain amount from the government.
The government gives you a certain
capitation
amount.
money.
Yes.
Does it only go for school fees? Okay, so there's school fees and then you've said infrastructure development.
Yes.
What else? Books come from the government.
Books come from the government.
Teachers are paid by the government. TSC teachers are paid
They're paid by the government.
So what else is government supplementing?
The infrastructure.
So infrastructure and the lunch.
Yes.
Partial lunch.
Yes, and then it pays for your teachers.
And the infrastructure is also partial.
Yes.
And in cases of boarding schools, for example, then they take care of now the living expenses.
So boarding school, the fees is for the living expenses.
Yes. Because tuition is
it
paid.
caters for your boarding and lodging.
And lodging. Tuition is paid by TSC.
Okay.
Now, a day school doesn't have that.
Yes. So you'll not charge the 35,000.
No. The fees is infinitely less.
Right.
It's more fees are paid to those who board.
Then I can understand why some BOMs and maybe some head teachers would look at asking the parents to pay a little bit more than the ceiling that have been given.
The way this thing ought to work is you don't charge the parents. You have a discussion with the parents first and you arrive at an understanding.
That's why you see that particular piece of documentation says, as approved by parents,
PTA.
the PTA and the BOM.
Yes.
Because it would assume that this conversation had been had and say, look guys, this is where we are. This is what we need. We're not getting what we should. So can we all do something about it?
It is understood, Eric, that the money that the government gives is often insufficient for the needs of the schools. And that is why you have a BOM, that's why you have a TA. Now, whenever there's a shortfall, you then seek to have a harambe. That is how it works.
Yes.
Right? So, anyone claiming that the money that the government gives is usually adequate, it rarely is. Now, schools that seem to do well are schools that have an organized BOM, organized TA, where things like the capacity for learning, as in the physical school structures and so forth, are adequate.
Yeah.
All that is adequate. If it's a boarding school, they have adequate boarding facilities, so they don't need to add more.
Yes.
Okay? And they also limit the numbers to their capacity. If it's a kitchen, they built it a long time ago. But usually they have something else. They have a strong former an alumni.
There's an alumni that is strong.
Yes, they have a strong alumni.
That helps to support some of these things.
Yes, these are the realities.
And now this is where the issue then comes in. That's why I was saying I can understand why some schools would be charging an extra amount than what the ministry is saying. Because the ministry is basically just looking at saying, okay, so you're an extra county school, you're within an urban area, you shall charge X amount, 45,000 shillings a year. But look, this extra county school or this national school previously served, let's say 20 years ago, had a population of 300 pupils, students, secondary school. Today, that same school has a population of 1,200. How
And the
much
infrastructure
money?
remains the same.
Yes. Or it hasn't changed
It
much.
hasn't changed. You haven't received any money from the government that can actually say that we have now put up 7 extra dormitories. Even looking at the community and the support you're getting from the community, because you're not talking about people who are from the same village. It's not a day school where you can call a meeting and people will come at the end of it. This is a national school. Students from across the country have landed in your school. You are going to have a meeting with the BOM. You're going to have a meeting with the leadership of the teachers, the Parents Association, and you'll agree, look, these are our needs. You can see where our students are. You can see where your children are sleeping. The dormitories are cramped. The dining hall is not even enough. We have to go for meals in shifts. You can see our facilities. We need to start working towards improving our facilities. Come up with a plan. extra money will be required to be raised by parents.
That is where now the alumni comes in. I know this because I have seen situations where something is required. The government is certainly not going to give you money for that one, and everybody knows that is the case. So, yes, the school comes up with this plan. The alumni, because the alumni are also represented in that whole setup, and they say, folks, this is what is required. Now, you only need to look at schools that have a longer history have an advantage.
Yeah.
Because, yes, you'll have a huge number of people who can contribute. So, and now with modern technology, you find WhatsApp groups have been formed, money is raised. I have seen things that had previously not been able, people were not able to do, are being done through such methods. But then, the point, again, that isn't raised here is, one of the things that the government also battles is falsification of documentation or by school heads. There are cases that we've read of where head teachers have falsified the number of students that they have. Remember, the money that you're given
is it per head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the ministry at some point has to more or less play an averages game and say, okay, now this is what I think we can afford and we can give. Okay. If you want to raise money, you must have public participation. You must talk. The BOM must talk with the TA. You must have a conversation with everybody who has an interest in that institution.
Okay, I'm here. I understand, or I think I'm coming to grips with this, because before it would have been really easy to point fingers at schools and say, how can you be behaving in such an unscrupulous manner? But then when you look at this, you start to get it. Now, if we look at the other side of what's going on currently, is that parents are crying because of the short period of time that they then have to raise fees. Look at the school year, the way which previously was before COVID. So learners report to school in January, and they're in school for 4 months. So you pay school fees in January, and you have 4 months
to raise the
next term fees. They come back to school in May. They're in school until until the end of August. You still have another 4 months. They come back to school September. They're in school until November. In December, you have that whole month to then raise fees for them to come back in January. Now, a year of school has been cramped into 9 months. And that's what we are going to see until the end of 2022. That now we are starting a new school year in July. The year will end in April. So the schools close for this term in October for 1 week. The second term begins. And mind you, we've just come off of the last term of the previous year a week ago, where there was still arrears for a lot of parents because they had, again, come from 3 weeks before that, another term. So essentially what you're asking parents to do is pay school fees every 3 months, knowing that there is a backlog from before. So the term ended, you have 1 week, a new term has begun. Now in this case, a new year has begun. So there's very little catch-up time for parents, and this is where the cry is, that things are extremely cramped. I went to my children's school yesterday. There's a long line of parents not coming to find out what to do. Parents are coming to have conversations with the school administration about what can be done to spread these payments out. And you can hear the cry from the school administration as well, that if we spread it out in the way in which we are being asked to spread it out, how are we then going to be able to keep up? Because in as much as we're asking you to bring your children back to school, we also have to keep up with the curriculum and make sure that we are teaching as we go along. So it's a very difficult situation now. And even as we're hearing the cries coming out from parents, what are we going to do? So we're going to struggle and look for this money to pay fees. And in most cases, 1, 2, 3 children in school at the same time. All right? You will maybe struggle and scrape by to pay this term's fees. In another 8 weeks, you're going to be asked to cough it up again for the next term. That is where the pressure is. That's where the cry is.
It is a valid cry. I was doing the arithmetic just the other day regarding this, and I was comparing some of the high-end private schools, government schools, and I was looking at two details within what I would call the overall fee structure. Caution money, entrance. Some even, if a child is coming to the school, there's an examination fee.
Yes, registration fee, this, that.
Then there's a medical fee. Okay? Now, I looked at the amounts that are charged. The high-end schools, that sum total of these others, not the main fees, is something like 200,000 shillings.
It is.
Per year. Or is it,
It's a one-off.
It's a one-off payment, and in some cases refundable when
money.
Yes, some of it is refunded. Some of it is refunded. Like the medical, they're not refunding you.
But the caution money, if you
money, they refund
destroyed
you.
anything, then you get it back. Kind
So
of
I was doing the maths and I was saying that this is money that just sits in the school. Okay? So every year, students leave, yes, but many prudent owners of schools will ensure those who come in are more than those who have left. So the money that you give is replenished, but it sits there. So do the maths. Let's say the school has 100 students, okay? And the figure that I mentioned, the 200,000 shillings, okay? 200,000 shillings times 100, that's 20 million shillings.
It is.
Sitting, okay? And then you add the others. Then when you throw in the fees, even if there are delays, any smart person can do the computation and figure out the minimum I require from these parents is this. And not all parents are going to ask for an arrangement.
Yeah.
Their parents will come and simply pay it once off.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say with what I'm saying? It is doable. Where the problem arises is if you're dealing with a public school in a rural area, okay? And the people who live in that area are subsistence farmers and they're sugarcane farmers.
Yep.
That cane takes 18 months before it is mature, and then you can wait an equal length of time for your payment. Okay? The maize that you grow is for your own consumption. Where do you think this particular parent is going to get money to pay you?
That's the thing.
And the child needs to come to school. And it is a government school.
That's the thing.
That's the problem. And it is one right now. We saw many stories yesterday of parents who, 3 months ago, we're not talking about last year, 3 months ago, bought particular set books for about 175 shillings per book, right? In another case, there were books that used to be, which was understandable, about 450 shillings, 500 shillings. They've gone back to buy books now for this new term. And the prices have shot through the roof. And you want to say, well, 250 shillings, it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, especially when you have to buy about 8 to 9 books.
Yep.
250 shillings in terms of an increase on what you bought previously for 10 books is 2,500 shillings, right? And those are just books. You've not bought the other things that need to go. So what were some parents opting to do? Some parents are opting to keep their children at home for the next 2 weeks until they earn a little bit more going to this end of the month period so that they can now buy. Others have said, this is the money that I have. I will buy what is available right now. I will buy what I can with what is available right now. And then I will go and beg the administration and say, I will wait until I get more money to come back for the rest.
You know, there's an arithmetic here. Depending on the parent you're talking with, not every parent earns a salary at the end of the month.
Yep.
Some get their money weekly, some even daily.
Yes.
Okay? So even as you're talking about an arrangement, the thinking should be, at the end of the year, how much money do I expect this person to have paid me? Now, work with that and consider the computation for the year, not for the term. Now, here I'm speaking as somebody who was once a head teacher. Okay? And it's a discussion. This discussion, I had it many times with the parents. I didn't have an idea, but in talking to parents and understanding what they did, that I realized you can't make this a general rule.
You can't.
You have to talk to each parent and understand each of their circumstances
Exactly.
and come up with a solution that only they. I had parents who would come and pay me on a daily basis.
Something every day.
It looked like it was a small amount, but when you did the maths at the end of the month, Even if it's on 2, you're heading towards completing what you wanted.
So is that the direction that it should go? Should schools then take into consideration the circumstances of each parent? Because it doesn't matter.
It has to be each.
It doesn't matter whether it's a small school in rural Kenya or a large private school in Nairobi. Everybody is having to deal with that installment kind of thing, right? At the moment.
Yes.
So should you, wherever you are right now, are we saying that schools ought to take into consideration the circumstances of parents and be accepting of a commitment that parents bring to them in terms of paying the fees?
Yes, and I think they've even said that. The ministry has said that, the Private Schools Association has said that. But to what extent?
That's the thing.
Because as you're saying that the children are coming to school, yes, and if they don't have the books that are required because you want some time, they have not paid the amount of money that is required, and it's a boarding school and they need to be fed on a daily basis. To what extent then can you balance this particular conversation with your?
Because can you take it from everybody?
Yeah.
How will you survive?
Actually, that is why it has to be at every individual parent. Because when you talk to the individual, you will actually get to understand. And in many cases, don't tell the father or the mother to come. Tell both parents to come. If they are both there, both of them to come. Okay? And it requires some very keen listening. There'll be the parent who is determined not to pay fees. Okay?
Yep.
So it's not a question of whether they have money or
Whether
not.
they have it or not.
They're determined to ensure that the child learns with them paying as
And
little
those
as they
are
possibly
many.
can. Yes.
There are many.
Yes.
They just want to take advantage. So there's a window.
So there's an option.
I will
right?
take
There's
advantage
a wiggle
of that.
Even when they
Yes.
know they can pay.
Yeah.
You
there's
see
some
that
wiggle
even in
room.
estates,
Yeah.
somebody can afford to pay
To not
that
pay their
money
service
for
charge,
service
whatever,
charge,
yeah.
but they will not.
But they make an issue out of
They
it.
just make an issue, and you can see clearly this person can afford.
So the assumption is that because it's your children who are going to school, that you will do everything you can to make sure that they do attend well. So there's some who will still take advantage, of the situation, that there's wiggle room. And I think that is where the ministry, because we heard George Magoha say yesterday, he said, look, if you can pay, just pay. So that we can allow those
that
who can't this platform for negotiation.
That's one of the advantages of a village school, because you know these people.
each other.
You know
Yes.
these people, and you even know their children, and you even know of an older child who's working.
Yes.
You just tell the head teacher, call so and so. And
28 minutes to 8. Let's take this break. We want to take your calls after this break on 0719012600, or also on social media. Tell us your pain, the financial pain of sending the children back to school as the new academic year begins. Tell us. Let's just hear. This is an opportunity just to rant, rave, to speak out, to express yourself, the frustrations, and also give options on what then can be done. And there are some who are head teachers and chair of boards, or those who sit in boards. You can also tell us what can be done to alleviate the pain of everybody. Good morning. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
They are stealing every opportunity that you should have. They're stealing your health facilities. They're stealing all the progress that you planned for your child. They're stealing all the benefits that university students should have. Your livelihood is slowly being taken away from you, which means your life is also being slowly taken away from you as you watch.
Cut through the noise and stay in the know by texting the word TSR to 22840 to receive these and more highlights and insights from the Situation Room directly to your mobile phone. Don't miss out on the latest from Kenya's biggest conversation. SMS TSR to 22840.
The weather with Spice FM.
13 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nairobi. Highs of 22, lows of 13 today. Cloudy conditions at 11 in Nyeri, with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Partly sunny conditions at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 14. 14 will also be the low in Eldoret, where it continues to rain with highs of 21. 28 will be the high and mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 17. Highs of 26 and lows of 17. 28 will be the high in Mombasa. It's raining at 22. Light rain at 25 in Malindi, highs of 28. 26 will be the high in a partly sunny Kampala. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 21, highs of 30. 15 will be the high in a very cold Johannesburg this morning. It's 1 degree and clear. Mostly clear conditions at 25 in Lagos. Highs of 29 and lows of 25. We'll see highs of 30 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 21. That'll be the low for today.
Spice up your life.
Okay, some traffic right around the Maradaima. That's coming up on Mombasa Road. And we're seeing red all over, unfortunately. We're in the middle of traffic hour now. There is traffic all the way from the South Sea turnoff through to Chiromo. So we're looking at Uhuru Highway all the way through to town and out to the Museum Hill roundabout. It doesn't look too pretty this morning at all. Heavy traffic on Thika Road. Survey through to Muthaiga. We're looking at the Pangani underpass. That's thick right now. It's thumping at Ngara as well. So these are ones that we're going to have to watch out for. Ngong Road, as you approach the City Mortuary roundabout, also is starting to be quite heavy this morning. All right. Also coming off of James Gishuru. Dot of traffic there as you head out into the city. Red Hill Bypass is going to help you out this morning. Southern Bypass, Eastern Bypass, Northern. Airport Road is also looking like it's packed today. So it's that Tuesday. Things are still hot and heavy in terms of people moving all around the country. One thing though, be safe. Let us know in case things get a bit sticky. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right, it's 23 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We are talking about the pain as schools reopen. So many parents are looking at how much money they need to raise to send their children back to school just a week after they closed. And it's a new academic year. That means you're starting new things, new textbooks. Some are actually even transferring children, so uniforms and such. And it's heavy. There are some schools that have actually, given some, what is it called? Some COVID rebate.
Yes.
And said, this one, okay. But then it's still quite a tidy sum of money. And it's a pain for very many people. We want to hear from you this morning. 0719-012-600. Are you in a situation where you're wondering, or so the school is charging this much? Maybe some head teachers have said, if your child does not have the full amount or 50%, please do not even bother thinking about bringing them to school.
Don't come.
And what should we be doing to accommodate one another? Because it's, like you said, yes, it's not easy.
It isn't.
Things have changed for very many people over the last 1 year.
We're also looking at that if you did have arrears from the previous year, because this is it is the previous year. If you did have arrears, then there are schools that are not accepting you back in. But I really do feel, and CT says something to me quite often, is that, there's nothing that cannot be solved by having a conversation. And I think that's where we need to get to. I think that people have been operating in silos for a very, very long time, especially when it comes to the livelihood of their children, education, this kind of thing, and feeling that they cannot actually go and have a conversation. But I do think that I think a lot of honesty needs to play out here. That if you're able to pay something, and because that's the thing that many parents would be apprehensive of going to school because they feel as though what they have in hand is not enough to be able to sort out what is necessary. But I think, a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. What you have is you bring it to school and say, this is my commitment, I think they would be able to listen to you, as opposed to just assuming that nothing can happen and staying at home. Who suffers? The learners suffer. And I don't think we want to get to that situation. So I think it really is, even as we hear the cries and the pressure, I think we can put a pin in a little bit of this by saying, go and have the conversation. It is difficult. It is tough. Whatever it is that you do have. And I think it is a plea right now that don't sit back and be afraid that your child will not go to school because you do not have enough. This is a situation that is global. At the moment, we do know that there are some people who have always struggled with school fees, whether there was COVID or not. But now we're looking at a situation where more than 50% of those who previously did not have an issue are having an issue. So it is something that I think everybody is understanding, or is at least cognizant of the pressure, cognizant of the problem at the moment, and would be willing to listen. But I also think that there's that wall of apprehension that stops people from having the conversation. You might be keeping your children at home. Meanwhile, there's something that can be done. You may be feeling this pressure, and there may be a solution. So I think in as much as we want to talk about policy and government, this, that, the other thing, I think there's a human side that needs to come out here and say, look, pick it up, go and have a conversation with those involved. You might find out that there would be something that can be done.
Even more importantly, the conversation shouldn't begin and end with matters relating to fees.
Fees.
The school has to have a policy or an outlook which enables the parents to feel that they can always have a conversation with them. So that fees just becomes one other matter that you perhaps would need to discuss. Now, that comes down to the relationship the school administration and the BOM have with the community around them. Meaning you're somebody the community feels they can talk to. Now, if that happens, then this conversation becomes a lot easier. Because the people in the Teachers Association, members of the board of management, they are villagers. Many of them are people so the solutions that need to be found exist within that community. And if you're all having a conversation, it is something that you can actually do.
There are many, many people who are taking their children to a school within the community.
Yes.
And there are many who are taking the children outside of the community. You actually have to board a matatu to move from here. Whether it's a county school, yes, it's in the same county, but it's in a village, in a different town. Or an extra county school or a national school. Now those ones, by the time you're saying, let's board a matatu, my son, my daughter, let's go and have a conversation with the school administration, you're taking a very huge risk. So you want to have some form of surety
that they would agree.
That at least you have a chance. At least you have a chance of leaving your child there. So you've left Nairobi, you're taking your child to an extra county school in Makueni. You want to know that at least when we go,
back with the child.
You can leave your child. When you go, you have something with which you can actually say, here, I have come, the school fees is 10,000, I have 3,000. Now, if you don't even have that 3,000, where do you begin?
Actually,
because there are many.
Actually, that's where the conversation begins.
That's where it should begin.
When you don't have the 3,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, how do you begin the conversation? Is it by you calling the school? Is it by you going? Because you're always...
It's not
the cost of going,
it's not you calling
taking
the school.
The child.
It's the school making it possible for you to feel you can come and talk. Yes. So these ultimatums that you issue before the parent actually comes, they don't serve anyone's interest whatsoever. You must. Forget that you must. Come. That is the conversation. You come. Because this must that is made known universally, it's a conversation you can have when you're talking with a parent and explain why it is, this is the way it is, when you're talking to them. But if you issue it out as a declaration, then essentially what you've done is you've threatened everybody generally. And
you might end up with an empty school.
This one, let's wait until we've sorted this thing out, then we can go.
Yeah.
But if your conversation is, please come and let us hear what it is that you want to say about this.
The converse is also true.
Yes.
Please come, everybody comes, and only 3 are paying the school fees. Everybody else is coming and they want to have a conversation. So they expect that they're going to leave their child that first night. Do you have food to feed these children? At least for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month?
Even for a month you do, because part of the problem that you'll find schools have, you asked about the money, they also have to pay suppliers for this food.
Yes.
And they don't pay them on a daily basis. So having food, you can have food. But at some point, you're going to have to
You'll
pay.
have to pay.
It's when you have to pay again, now that you are now under pressure as a school to actually pay. But unless it's a new parent who is bringing a child for the first time, the other parents have been parents even before COVID. So they're people you know. This story is a story about relationships. So it's a continuous story. It doesn't begin, neither does it end with COVID.
Sure. And even as you say that, then I'm just thinking that that's the way then that it ought to be. That all of our interactions must go a level deeper from that almost plastic appearance to being relational. Whether it is the relationship that you have with your school administration trying to get your children in school, whether it is the relationship that you have with the minutest unit of governance at your level, that you must be in a relational state in order to get things done. If you're going to sit and assume that this other party is thinking in this way and the other person also thinking in the same manner, the two will never meet. And so you have these two forces running parallel to one another. They'll never meet. Things will never get done. The waters will never join. And you need the waters to join in order for you to have any kind of development moving forward. In order for children to go to school, these things need to be done. In order for leaders to know that this is what the people need, this relational aspect needs to come into play. In order for governance, in order for government and leadership to know what is happening in the country, it has to be on a relational level, not this plastic hiding in silos that we've become accustomed to. Is that the two have got to meet. And I think this can be replicated along whatever lines you want to look at it in the country. In the world, really. That it cannot...
Watu ni kuongea.
Yes,
absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely.
And Eric,
it must be.
To a great extent,
Yes,
this
yes.
actually happens. That is why we do not have a huge dropout of schools in the last 1 year.
Yes.
Because people
It's
have
because
been...
heads of schools have actually been very accommodating. And we even spoke to even Kahindi Muli, the chair of the Secondary Schools Association. They're very accommodating. But then you've got to know how much am I ceding and how much do I expect for you to meet me halfway. Before you come in, City, let me just play this clip of Education CS Professor George Magoha. He was speaking to head teachers and he was telling them, look, guys, you have got to be understanding as well. But maybe you could argue that his language to the head teachers was, come on, think.
The school belongs to government. The children belong to government. You yourself, you belong to government. Who do you think you are? 75% of high schools, in fact, all the day schools, there should be no charge there. You must be crazy to be giving a child a bill of 11,000 shillings for feeding. Who says you have to feed that child at school? If you want to feed the child, get the PTA and agree and don't extort money from them. If you don't take, the government of the Republic of Kenya shall take action. We cannot allow this. Let us not assume that all the children come from families that have got money. There are families that
the CS basically is saying this, but it appears as if the CS is speaking about something else that he knows to be happening in schools.
Yes.
That there are heads who are extorting parents.
Look, if you were to just listen to the stories that you hear and believe them, some of them are completely astounding. I remember being told a story of a school, government school, popular school because it did well. It had 4 streams. Then it decided because the demand created a 5th stream. But I was being told that the 5th stream was now for parents whose children didn't quite meet the master to actually enter the school, but you want the child to go into. So as I said, you paid the fees that the school required, but you also gave the headmaster
something.
So they used to say, that 5th stream, Niake, yes, it belongs to him. Meaning, yes, if the fees are 100 shillings, you know very well you're going to pay 150.
It's his fund. His or her fund.
100 shillings you'll get receipt for. 50 is
his.
And it's for you to be in that particular.
You're in that school. Your child didn't qualify, but that one he has said it's his.
Okay. For you to get admission to this particular school.
Yes.
Then you'll all have an arrangement for the next 4 years.
Yes. There's a small levy that you have to pay.
And this is known by education officials.
You cannot do that and for it not to be known. So you ask for 50 because 20 you're going to have to part with. Yes. Professor Magoha is talking about something that he must have been told, and he has details, and he understands very, very well. Do we really think that the rot we constantly speak about within the government system, within our political class, do you think other agencies of the government are exempt from this corruption? Especially when they know they have power.
No,
Head teachers have power.
They have some immense power.
Yes.
And those bosses are those above them. They're immediate supervisors, and this is the county directors of education and such. They know these things.
But of course they do.
So it's an entire cartel. It's a racket that's being played by a group of people.
It is. The only saving grace is that it isn't every school.
Yeah.
There are a few individuals who are that way inclined. The bulk of the people who are in the profession just do what they're supposed to do.
Daniel
They provide the
says,
service.
how I wish school head teachers had the same understanding and care as you do. Unfortunately, the reality is that some of us parents are dealing with heartless heads of schools whose behavior is worse than Al-Shabaab's. Daniel.
I think he has probably come across an individual or individuals who behave that way. By the time somebody becomes a head teacher in a government school, believe me, it's not just, they don't just promote you because you've passed some exam. No. You have qualities. They've seen how you manage your class. Your students do well in exam. You are involved in extracurricular activities. You relate well with your fellow teachers. You've been a head of department. You don't become head. You have to become a head of department. Okay? From head of department, you may become head of God knows what else. And then you
dean of studies.
Yes, something of that sort. Then you may even be a deputy head. And after that, they may make you head of a school that has a smaller number of... all these processes take place. And every step, you're relating to people.
Yep.
And it's your relationship with people that are more or less determined. And in each of these cases, you have a board of management. You have a teachers association. And all these people know you and are listened to.
Yet, very many cases, you hear that a head teacher who maybe believes that they are the way they are because they are disciplinarian, they're actually dictatorial.
It is true.
In how they deal with the students, how they deal with the parents, how they deal with the entire community.
There are people who I think the change comes about when they actually reach the pinnacle.
When they get the power.
Yeah, bus. So
Absolute
the corruption,
power.
the corruption of that. And then the government has this policy, the TAC, of transferring people, right? So you transfer someone from an environment where they're well known, you take them to this unknowing place where people don't know them. But with due course, they get to know them properly. So I think the person who was speaking to us a while ago,
he gets it.
Yeah, he's gotten to know somebody.
You've got somebody umejua, mutanijua. So basically, this is it. But unfortunately, you see now, for the case of someone like Daniel, it means that he is uncomfortable with the school.
Yes.
And that will translate to his children being uncomfortable with that school.
Yes.
And it's not a conducive environment at all, especially for the learner.
But you'll find that in a lot of cases, the no choice thing comes into play. That right for now, where I am, I don't have a choice, but to keep my children in this institution because either the others are too far away, I cannot afford to have them so far away from me, and everything else that is offered in the area is not up to scratch in terms of quality, which takes us into a whole other conversation. Is that are there, in terms of quality education, within the vicinity of parents that don't have to then take them across the country, for example, or take them far away from where they are? And I think you'll find that that is the case. That in terms of quality, it is not sufficient in terms of institutions in the areas in which people reside. And this is why we saw this policy by the president just a short, I believe it was in March, when we started talking about things like the abolition of boarding schools. Why? Because he wanted to make sure that parents and learners are closer together, except for when they needed to be in higher levels of secondary school. But even as you're trying to change this education policy, are we also making sure that you're bringing the quality of education closer home as well? The truth of the matter is that now, look at all these things now coming to play. You're trying to say, can I have a conversation with somebody about me being able to pay over a period of time because I don't have it? And then you're met with an individual who probably is not going to give you that option because they're just going to be hard on you. But then again, why? Because that is the only option in that area for quality education. So it's probably gonna, dismiss you because you don't take up this position. Somebody else will, and that's the only option for you in the area. So then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I go and struggle and pay, or do I keep my children at home? All of these things, there's a domino effect here. Quality of education being brought closer. At the same time, these conversations that need to be had and say, let's deal on a more relational level. Can we really do that if in a 500-kilometer radius there's only 4 schools, for example, that are quality driven enough for you to take your children to?
There's
many things colliding here.
The other discussion we're actually having here is the ramifications of this rot we keep talking about, which is at the top. Did we actually think that it would not permeate other institutions of government? Did we not think that it would permeate into institutions where our children go to?
For sure. But it would have, the most vulnerable are the ones to suffer the first and the fastest when it comes to things like this rot and corruption that we talk about. Or the mismanagement of resources, or the mismanagement of ideas. That the most vulnerable in society, when you look at children, when you look at the poor, they are the ones who will suffer the first and the fastest. When you're dealing with rot, it's not the people at the top who suffer.
It's also the bottom. Yeah. I like the fact that the Ministry of Education decided to expand the number of national schools that are recognized by the ministry, and then also the number of extra county. Formerly they were called provincial schools, right? Increasing those schools means that you're also increasing the sizes and facilities that you're providing.
Yes.
But that was where that was the idea. The idea was when you make your school a national school, then we shall make sure that progressively we increase its capacity and improve its capacity in terms of its facilities. Have we been moving in tandem with the plans? Because that's the other thing. When we talk about improving, once you say you have 60 national schools, you have 102 extra county schools, and you have X number of county schools, you're saying that you are putting in more money on infrastructure.
But who's checking, Eric?
The same ministry.
Exactly. I'm checking myself.
And the Auditor General.
Who's checking and saying these plans, are we following them? And it's clear that they're not happening.
The whole idea of education for children has evolved just as our society has evolved. And again, what we're discussing here are the realities that we are now coming face to face with in this particular sector. You see? If you look at some of the schools that seem to do well, in addition to just having a head teacher who really knows their onions from their leeks and understands what needs to be done, you will find they have a strong BOM, they have a good parent teachers association.
BOD even.
Yes, and they have a good alumni.
Yes.
And these people work in tandem. If you look at any school that seems to be doing well, you'll find this is what's happening here. It's a reality that unfortunately has to be faced. Now, what happens to a school that doesn't have that combination or that complete combination? I argue that they should just keep working towards it and work well with whatever it is that they have.
There's got to be a striving for something.
Yes.
You have to be able to get there. Because I think this is the problem, that we maintain this lackadaisical, okay, we're getting by, we finished the year, right? Let's just try and get to next year. There's got to be a striving for excellence. There's got to be a striving to do better. There's got to be a striving to get to where you're envying those who have gotten there or who are also trying to do better. But I think we get
stop looking at that school like just a vehicle.
Yeah.
So my child is here for 8 years? My child is here for only 4 years. They'll be done. They'll be gone. So I'm not really going to invest a lot of my time and energy into this. I'm going to invest a lot of my time and energy in my child.
And
the school
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. And that's where I think we go wrong as a country, all of us. Because if we do that, if we start taking a lot more interest in the quality of education, if we stop just whining and complaining about the quality of education and getting more involved, attend those meetings as PTA meetings. Volunteer yourself to sit in the board of the BOM. You are an alumnus of a certain school. Make sure that you participate and you understand. Go back to your school and find out how is it doing. Then we'll improve.
I agree 100%.
Conversation continues into the next hour. We'll be having a conversation with John Ngumi. He's the chairman of the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation, ICDC. This is the body that's now in charge of our port, our rail, and our pipeline. Big infrastructure. What's the thinking behind it? What is ICDC then doing to make sure that we have all this working seamlessly in terms of our infrastructure projects? We'll be asking those questions. Keep it right here. Good morning, 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The family of the late fugitive cop Caroline Kangungo has confirmed that her body is en route to Eldoret from Iten, where a post-mortem will be conducted later in the day. Last week, an autopsy, which had been scheduled to be done at Iten Funeral Home, was postponed last minute. The burial of Kongongo is also set to take place today at her parents' home in Anin, Keyo North Sub-County. Barnabas Kibor, her father of the late cop, broke down in tears on Friday last week after being denied the body of his daughter for burial.
Wanipea leo nichukue usiku. Sababu siwezi kuja hapa nimejipanga, alafu mwisho niambiwe siwezi pewa na sijui ni ndani amefunga na ni kitu ambayo ilikuwa inajulikana tumepanga. Tumeongea tangu Jumatano mpaka leo. So naomba watoe amri nipate mtoto yangu. Niende nishike. Kesho kulingana na mpango vile tulikuwa tumepanga.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has asked Kenyans to only elect leaders without integrity questions in next year's general elections. ACC Chairperson Eliud Wabukala and CEO Twali Mbarak said that while the commission will do its best to flag politicians with questionable character and integrity, the electorate had more powers to deal with such individuals.
Unfortunately, we continue to witness people assume public office despite facing serious criminal charges, including corruption and economic crimes.
In the next election, there will be people who will have Form 4 fake certificate, fake degree certificate. They will contest. The ESCC, the IBC will have no ground of stopping them. But do you know who is the best person to stop those people? Is the citizen. Most of these guys who have got dubious issues, they're the ones who win the elections.
Two suspects behind the murder of Dutch businessman and his bodyguard Evans Bokoro will be detained for 21 more days to give police time to complete their investigations. The suspects were arraigned in Shanzu, where DCI detectives told the court that the two were killed on June 4th this year. In addition, the DCI asked Judge Dan Odhiambo to give them more time to submit the necessary documents and weapons used to carry out the killings. Judge Odhiambo was informed that Haman had initiated the process of divorcing his wife, Riziki Cherono, following differences in the marriage which angered her, making her plan his murder. The High Court has warned the police against unlawful and arbitrary arrests as a starting point for investigations. Sitting in Malindi, Justice Ruben Nyakundi termed it illegal to take people into custody, then begin looking for evidence. He said such arrests made without evidence were a violation of fundamental rights to human dignity and liberty. Nyakundi further said that such cases were becoming rampant as police failed to do their work. And finally, the 7-member selection panel that has been conducting interviews to pick 4 commissioners to IBC is due to go on retreat to pick the successful candidates. The names will then be forwarded to President Uhuru Kenyatta and subsequently transmitted to the National Assembly for approval. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, seems to be red all over the city. We're looking at, coming off from Ngong Road, getting to the City Mortuary roundabout. It's actually quite full now. Mombasa Road as well. Also on Langata Road, all the way from Langata Estate up there around Otiende down through to the roundabout at Timor. A lot of traffic this morning, feeding off onto Landis Road from Kaloleni. Behind that, Makongeni and Makadara. Before that, quite some heavy traffic at the Donholm interchange as well. Manyanja, major traffic there going on. And so we're going to keep an eye on this. Outer Ring, also North Airport Road, coming up from Embakasi. Serious traffic this morning. Where else is it? Red through Uhuru Highway and Nyayo Stadium roundabout through into the city out towards Westlands. It's actually quite hot and heavy today. We're looking at traffic hour right now. Muthaiga still quite packed. Sticky situations there as well. It's Tuesday morning traffic, and we expect this to be for some time. Still in the middle of traffic hour. Look at it in about half an hour and see what it looks like. But just take your way through carefully. We don't want to get into a stickier situation that is already. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way
Kenya's
to start
biggest
your
conversation
day.
gets into the third hour. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome. This is what we do every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room with you every morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga. We have a guest for the next hour, John Gumi. We'll be introducing him shortly. But first, let's hear today's proverb from C.T.
A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
Mm-hmm.
Before then, let them be.
Actually, you know,
that's what happened with that precious talent school.
Mm-hmm. The wall collapsed.
Mm.
And what happened?
A crackdown.
I'm actually reminded of an earlier time when roads would be repaired because it was heard that the president was coming to that particular area.
Oh, yes. That too. Some time in the distant past.
Sometimes in the not too distant past, yes.
It happens even today.
Even today.
Oh, yes. Mkubwa anakuja.
Yeah.
Contractor, mobilize. You're on site. And you do some work. And then there'll be somebody here who comes to explain, Your Excellency, so now the plan is within the next 2 weeks, we'll reach this corner. And then in the next 3 months, hopefully, Your Excellency will come to launch.
But when Your Excellency leaves, we go to sleep.
But there's a detail that is sometimes not mentioned. You know, in those earlier times, there was nothing like the president moving from point A to B in a helicopter. Very rarely. But even the vehicle that the Excellencies travel in don't quite feel the road like the other vehicles that wananchi watukufu travel in. Believe me, the road feels very, very different if you are in a certain type of vehicle. Same road. Because there are some vehicles that are built specifically to absorb all that nonsense that the road has.
Right.
There are other vehicles that are built to amplify
everything that's happening on the roads. So let's start with history. Today in history, on the 27th of July, 1973, President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta cut the tape to officially open Uchumi House on Aga Khan Walk. Right?
Yes.
Uchumi House is the headquarters of ICDC. He was accompanied by the then Executive Director, Eliud Matuamai, ICDC Chairman then, Johnson Kiragori, and Minister for Commerce and Industry, Dr. Julius Gekonyo-Kiano, among others. On this day in 1973. And on this day in 2021, a man has come from Uchumi House to the Situation Room. John Gumi, the chairman of ICDC. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. But I think I have to disabuse you. Until 2 weeks ago, Uchumi House was indeed the head office of ICDC. ICDC no longer owns Uchumi House, or in fact no longer owns anything at all. Every single thing has been transferred to a new company called Kenya Development Corporation, which brings together ICDC assets and also brings together two other companies which are going to be liquidated. One is called Industrial Development Bank Capital, IDB Capital, and the other one is Tourism Finance Corporation. So ICDC has ceased doing what ICDC used to do for the last 60, 70 years.
It's a new entity now altogether.
There's another new entity altogether called Kenya Development Corporation.
So the ICDC that you are chair of is not an investment and all these things.
All those have gone.
So what?
Effective 1st of July, actually.
Okay. So what is ICDC then?
What ICDC is now going to focus on is doing what last year's Executive Order number 5 said. Coordinate, oversight, align those three entities, Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Ports, and Kenya Railways Corporation. So we no longer have the dual mandate of looking after what ICDC has been doing since 1954.
And who's going to be doing that now?
KDC, which will be a separate entity with its own board, own chair, and has taken over all the assets of ICDC.
And it will have no connection whatsoever with the current ICDC?
None whatsoever.
All right. So now as you're looking at managing, the port, the railway, the pipeline. Oversighting. All right. Oversighting. So give us an insight into what that oversight then really looks at for these three.
Let's go back to why was this done? Why did the president push for these entities to work together? Go back to history. You may recall something called East African Railways and Harbors, which after the community broke up and several other developments, split into two entities, KPA and KRC. The reality is that a port like KPA operating in Kilindini and now in Lamu and elsewhere can't operate without people either bringing goods into the port for export or taking goods from the port inland. That is the reality.
Yep.
How do you transport goods? Road, rail, pipeline. So what we've had is a mismatch in the sense that we've had these entities operating as independent entities doing their own thing without an alignment of strategic intent, where possible, a combining of operations to reduce costs, all those efficiency moves. In 2019, when Kenya Pipeline was looking to open up northern Kenya, which if you think of Kenya today, the economic corridor has run from traditionally from Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, Eldoret. A new one is being created as we look with our eyes from Lamu, Isiolo, then either down to Nairobi or up to Ethiopia and Sudan and onto Uganda and parts west. So Kenya Pipeline was going to cash in on that. The idea was to build a pipeline to Isiolo. At the same time, to Nanyuki. At the same time, Kenya Railways was looking to build a new railway from Nairobi to Nanyuki to replace the old one. Each of these projects was budgeted to cost between 20 and 25 billion. So that's 50 billion. I had this morning as I drove in, you were talking in billions and what a billion here could do.
Trillion.
Yeah, they
Trillions,
are everywhere,
actually.
trillions.
Yes.
Okay? So what the president asked me and others is, what does Kenya Pipeline actually want? It wants to get petroleum to Nanyuki. How it gets there, in the same way that a tanker will come to Eldoret and load petroleum at Eldoret to take to other parts, to Kitale and elsewhere. All Kenya Pipeline really required was somebody to collect fuel from Nanyuki Road here in the national area to Nanyuki.
Yeah.
Kenya Railways could do that. What did Kenya Railways lack? It lacked cash. What was really needed? Not a new rail, because it's really a freight line, was to repair that rail. So, to cut to the chase, instead of 50 billion, Kenya Pipeline spent 1.8 billion. Kenya Railways contributed other stuff in material. Kenya Defense Forces and NYS did the engineering and hard work, and it cost 3 billion.
So instead of the 25 billion...
No, instead of 50 billion.
50 billion. Well, but 50 was going to be pipe and rail.
Yes.
So forget the pipe.
No. Include the pipe, because, as I said, the pipe was merely a way for Kenya
It was just to transport
to get their product to Nanyuki now.
Okay.
And the rail enables them to do precisely that.
In the long term, when Nanyuki and Isiolo and others open up, it may then become economical to open up. And indeed, there is a separate plan to build a product pipeline, maybe alongside the crude oil pipeline from Lamu to Isiolo. But as we speak, we now have a proper system for delivering fuel to Nanyuki more efficiently and in bigger quantities. So much so that Kenya Railways is now in the process of bringing in another 3 locomotives to run that.
Just to service that line.
So you're spending under 6 billion shillings, whereby you would have spent 50 billion.
We spent 3.
Because of a critical oversight and coordination role? Is that what we are saying here?
Because of aligning the two, yes. That's what we're saying. And that's why South Africa has got Transnet, which runs railroad, port, and Germany and France. Those logistics, to be more accurate, you should be looking also at putting in airports.
Yeah.
It's all part of that logistics. And think about it. If you go back into history, there used to be a company called KNTC. It's still there. KNTC is the largest owner of warehouses in Kenya. You see all this ALS and what have you?
Yeah.
KNTC was there long ago. When I was a child, every town had a warehouse for rice or cement or beer or whatever. Bicycles, yeah, exactly. So what then is a next step? Remember, our food, the 40% of our food goes to waste because of storage.
Yep.
So in addition to what we're doing, working with the Ministry of Agriculture, we are going to, although KNTC is actually owned by the former ICDC now, KNTC, but that's another story. What we're going to do is to revive those warehouses, and suddenly we have an abundance of storage and hopefully an abundance of food. So these are big stories. It's a bigger story than seems apparent.
It's clear bringing together the bulk logistics companies, is a way to go. But then if you look at it from the political angle, and this is where you look at, so Kenya Ports Authority is in business, it's bringing in a return. Kenya Railways has not been doing so well over some time. Now it has a new heavy investment called the SGR running from Nairobi to Naivasha. It requires billions of money to operate. Pipeline has been doing well. It had an investment of a new pipeline the other day. So many commented and said, this is a way to basically show up the Kenya Railways. Have two very well operating entities that are making money, and then there's one that's not making money, and it's really part of the flagship of the administration. So support it.
Let's first look at the facts. And there are 2 critical facts you need to understand about Kenya Railways. Railways, as a rule, don't make money. They are intermediate providers of an essential service to other things. Yes, you don't want them to lose money, but as a rule, they don't make money. Okay? So to expect Kenya Railways to be in the league of Kenya Pipeline or Kenya Ports is just unreal. It's got a lot of cash flow, but a lot of that cash flow will go into its operation. So yes, we do need to make Kenya Railways more efficient to make sure that it doesn't lose the money.
Okay.
Secondly, there is this huge misnomer about the SGR money, and I know this is what you're all driving at. The loan is a loan to the government, which then on-lends to China, to Kenya Railways. So it's not Kenya Railways. The loan is being serviced by the government.
It's by Kenyans, yes.
Because it is a government loan. Okay? So it's not as though Kenya Railways is seated out there waiting with bated breath to grab KPC or whatever cash. Number 3, and this is critical as well, there is no merger yet. We don't have a merger. Each company has remained precisely as it was before. Yes, its activities are coordinated, and we want to intensify that, but no one is reaching into Kenya Pipeline's accounts to grab cash to give to Kenya Railways. And by the way, government has always had that ability. There is something called the State Corporations Act, section clause 16.3. I know it very well, which empowers the Minister for Finance to take any cash he deems to be surplus to the requirements of that corporation and deploy it elsewhere. They haven't been doing that. Why should they start now? No. I think that there is no merger. That's the first thing, and everybody has been thinking that what will happen is that all the cash that's in KPA and KPC accounts will go off to no. You in the papers yesterday, you read that our reserves have gone down by X. I forget the number, due to a repayment of a loan to China.
Yeah.
Did KPC or KPA contribute to that repayment? No, that was a National Treasury repayment. So where is this myth coming out that this company's cash is being used to help Kenya Railways?
Well, a lot of times information comes out to fill a vacuum. Right? So it could be, John, that because we're not hearing what exactly the real situation is, people then decide to fill the gaps with information that they say, okay, this is what could make sense because we're not hearing it coming out. So maybe if we heard it, that this is actually what is going on, then people would not have that temptation of, filling the vacuums that are there.
Which is why I'm here this morning.
Voila.
Yes, and you see, John, when it comes to matters related to the Treasury, the one thing that seems apparent is that the Treasury has become the home of, 1, generating taxes on a daily basis through KRA for Kenyans to pay. 2, paying, always telling us about debts, some of which we didn't even know about and which we now need to pay, and they're huge, colossal amounts. So you cannot blame the naysayers for thinking that here's a situation where pipeline makes money, KPA makes money, Kenya Railway, dubious. But you have a situation where 2 huge money-making enterprises suddenly comes under one umbrella. For people to add 1 and 1 and come to the conclusion, they could be completely wrong. But you can understand how it is.
But this is one, and that is one.
Yes.
Well, I hope I have dispelled that. But also, I need also to say that this business of us not knowing about loans is also another myth. There is a huge book. It's about that thick.
Yeah.
That thick?
It's called Expenditure Estimates.
How many pages is that thing?
Thick.
Okay.
But if you, us, and those who inform Kenyans care to read it, every single loan is there. You may not know it. You may say it's not there, but there's actually and I will take the trouble to today when I'm back in the office. I'll forward you the page on loans, which goes back into great detail. How much is being paid? What is owed to whom? It's there. I think we've been a bit lazy.
John, you're an investment banker. You look at finance. That's what you've been doing for how many years?
Not only that.
This is your life.
It's people like John who are called upon when we were getting into some of these things. That's what advise and say, no, that particular path, I wouldn't really advise you to take. This is the path you ought to take.
Yes.
Now, the moment something is like One Piece Part 1 and 2. So something like 2,000 pages. Who do you think is going to read it?
Page 1.
Yes.
Make it even one page, my friend. But it's financial.
John, the point I'm making is, it is good that information is in the public domain, as you say, but the onus is on the government to be able to make this thing understandable. Synopsisize it. Say, folks, this is what
but
is
the onus,
happening.
I would have thought, is also on the media. After all, the word media is derived from intermediary, and you are meant to be the intermediaries to explain the complexities of the world to us poor folk.
You are absolutely right, John, and as you correctly put it, that's why you're here. and we've asked others.
That's
yes.
why you say touche, and we move to the next one.
Yes.
Hey. Okay, we were not prepared for that, but
thank you.
It's a good one. Now, talking about the whole idea, and you've explained it very well, the whole idea of seeing how do we synergize this very important infrastructure arms of our sector. I'm coming back to how we started this. So the president with the executive order says, ICDC, this is the board, and your role shall be to coordinate.
Correct.
But ICDC, since 1950, whatever you said.
Four. That's when it was set up.
Yes, I know. I was just trying to show that it's a long time ago.
In the previous century.
Or before independence, right? In the war of I don't know what.
Yes.
Has been doing something different, sort of different. Why not create a new entity and say this new entity shall then coordinate this particular infrastructure, and let ICDC go ahead and do what it's been doing and revamp ICDC?
Well,
why go into ICDC and then now force ICDC to cede its work to KDC and the others?
I am stunned that the media could be encouraging us to create yet another parastatal. Anyway, again, please go back to 2013. In 2013, a committee co-chaired by Isaac Awondo and Abdulkadir.
Abdulkadir, yes.
Came up with recommendations on reforms of parastatals, commercial parastatals, how they should be governed and managed. Which was really a combination of work that had been going on for the previous 2 decades. The broad conclusion is there are too many that are doing the same thing. They need to be managed more efficiently.
Yep.
One of the recommendations, which I supported very strongly for historical reasons, is that Kenya needed a proper development bank. If you go back to Kenya's history, late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, the motors for financing virtually all the companies you see in Kenya, which grew up at that time, were ICDC, IDB, DFCK, KIE. We allowed them to atrophy. We forgot that development banks have a very different mindset. And ICDC in those days could come to your company, become a shareholder, go onto your board, give you both loan and equity, and lo and behold, your companies, a lot of the big companies we see here, household names came from that history. So we were left with a patchwork of development banks, and the idea was to have one development bank. The combination of ICDC, IDB, and tourism finance is not something that was invented last year. It was one, read the report. It is not that thick, it is this thick.
Yes.
It is there. There was the idea of creating our development bank, although we couldn't call it Kenya Development Bank for legal reasons. It's now called Kenya Development Corporation. So using ICDC at last year was a way station. It wasn't the end. Already the decision had been made to continue with that merger.
Okay.
So rather than creating two, let KDC take over, clean out ICDC of all these assets, and start afresh with ICDC now. Now, eventually, what really ought to happen, if our politics ever allows it, what we ought to have is one company, one holding company for these entities, plus airports and others. Maybe that will happen in future, but that is what ought to happen.
Someday soon.
Someday, hopefully soon.
Let's take a break at this point. Having a conversation with John Gumi, the chairman of ICDC, and we are talking about managing Kenya's ports, railway, and pipeline, and what it means also, looking at our whole infrastructure. What do we need to do to make sure that we have efficiency in the governance of all these bodies? We'd like to hear from you as well. You can post any questions that you have to John Gumi on SpiceFM KE, either on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. We'll pose the questions to him. 8:30. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hai, mheshimiwa. Uko kwa supermarket na umevaa uniform?
Yeah, of course. Unajua pia sisi tuambiwa turudi shule tusome ndio tupate degree.
Oh, that's why umechagua Naivas mkubwa.
Of course my sister, because of quality shopping na discount.
Na, unarudi class gani?
Jana kwa wazee, tuko rada kurudi tena with the Naivas back to school. You might not be ready to go back, but we're ready for you. It's time again to enjoy the widest selection of school products at Kenyan-friendly prices. Plus, score points with your Naivas card. Go back to school.
Hello.
Hello. Umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 1 hash to read the standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. Jeshi la Wokovu.
And everyone knows.
Okay. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, a little bit of sunshine in the capital today. Looking at lows of 13 today, highs of 22. Cloudy conditions at 13 in Nyeri. Highs of 18 and lows of 12 today. We'll look at 14 and cloudy conditions. Now the rain has stopped in Nakuru. Light rain at 14 in Eldoret. Highs of 21. 28 will be the high in a partly sunny Kisumu. Currently at 21 and partly sunny at 20 in Kakamega. Highs of 26 and lows of 17. 28 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's mostly sunny at 24 and rain showers at 26 now in Malindi. Highs of 28. 26 will be the high in Kampala, where it's partly sunny at 25. 22 mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30 and lows of 21. It's slightly warmer in Johannesburg now at 2. It's sunny, however, and that will be the low for today, going to highs of 15. Mostly clear conditions at 24 in Lagos, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And we'll see lows of 21 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 21, highs of 30 today. Okay, so we're still looking at some heavy traffic. Imara Daima on Mombasa Road. I don't know what the issue is. Well, we know that construction is continuing to hamper things in this neck of the woods, so we're just going to have some patience getting through this one, guys. Also, looking at more traffic on Mombasa Road, we're going to see that through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, out then towards the CBD. Jogoo Road is a headache today, coming past Makadara, out towards Kaloleni and onto Landis Road. It spills quite some into the CBD, and getting heavier and heavier on Langata Road as you get to the roundabout at Timor. Bagathi Way is going to give some good reprieve today, and then you're going to see Westlands where it's jam-packed, unfortunately, and Thika Road right around Muthaiga Square. It is hot and heavy right now, and it's going to thump all the way through to Ngara as you try to get into the city. We're still in the middle of traffic hour. We expect to see this for about an hour more. Just in case things get too sticky, do let us know. We'll see maybe where the options are. But the bypasses are looking pretty good, guys. Southern, Eastern, the Northern interchange is not too bad this morning. Use those. Longer route, but it'll get you through without too much of a headache. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
It's 24 minutes to 9. The conversation continues. This is a Situation Room with Eric Latif, CT Muga, Nduoko, and our guest this hour, John Gumi, Chairman, ICDC. Before we continue, John, I want to take you back because you're somebody who has worked in the private sector for many years as an investment banker. And then you now got into public service and you are now working in the public sector. You went into Konza Technopolis, then you went to Kenya Pipeline as chairman. Now you're chairman ICDC. That move from private to public, when we see many making that move, it's either of two things. One, they're very patriotic and they see an opportunity where they can contribute, after successfully running in the private sector. Now they want to bring their expertise here. Or two, they have seen an opportunity where they can better secure their future. Or both.
Well, first of all, let's again stick to the facts. I did not move. I was co-opted. I was happily working away as an investment banker, and I was co-opted first as a non-exec chair of Konza and then as chair of Kenya Pipeline, which, by the way, also meant that I had to leave my career. Now, of course, there was a choice of saying no. But then, what right do I have to moan about misgovernment of public sector corporations if when I'm given an opportunity to try and change it, I don't? That would have been a complete negation of everything I had done or believed. So I took it up. I can tell you, and I've said this before to cries of disbelief, that anybody who genuinely wants to make money in the public sector without stealing, stay out. There is no such thing. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of work, and lots and lots and lots and lots of non-monetary pleasure in getting things done. But please, don't look for the billions. There's no comparison between what I was making as a banker and what I get paid to do what I do in the public service. So I was co-opted, but I did not object. And quite frankly, despite the, shall we say, a very colorful 6 years. I don't regret it.
You're still enjoying yourself.
Oh, yeah, why not?
You look back and you see what you've done, and you're like, okay, we have moved the needle.
We moved the needle considerably. I mean, KPC, I dare say, is now a very admired corporation.
Yeah.
It's made considerable contributions to the exchequer. Charles here will remember what we did last year on sanitizers and masks, and generally speaking, it is an exemplar of what can be done if you insist on governance and ignore all the incredible amounts of noise that Kenyans have a genius for generating.
So looking back at that point when you were one of the geniuses that were making a lot of noise on the misgovernance of our public sector and especially state corporations, look back. What ails the state corporations?
I don't think there's one ailment. I think there is a combination of things that have grown. Just like moss and plants and what have you grow on a wall, and suddenly over 30 years you can't tell where the wall was or the color. There are certain things. There is a very understandable tension between boards and management. There is this confusing structure where you have ministries and inspectorates and many other bodies. But what KPC did teach us is that if a board is singularly minded as to what it wants to do, it will cut through all that. No one takes a panga and forces you to sign some deal or some contract which is detrimental to Kenya. So if a board seriously takes its job, if a board takes its role seriously, then it is possible to cut through a great deal of what comes across as lack of governance. There's a very powerful word. It's called no.
So, John, do you think that? I think we've had this conversation very, very many times. Is it the individual who sits in a position, like here we're talking about oversight and coordination of certain things, which you have seen has yielded certain benefits. It has done some good, right? And hopefully to do more. So is it the individual who is driving this particular agenda then would be the one that will make the change, or is it everybody working together? What do you see?
Ideally, you want to institutionalize all these things. You do not want to depend on individuals to change things, and that's what we strove to do at Pipeline by pushing for openness, pushing people to say things as they are, and pushing for empowerment of particular officers in the company. But the reality again is that we still remain a pretty young country, and therefore the individuals at the top will make a difference in a way that they won't in a more mature, larger economy. The individuals who head corporations, who head state corporations in Kenya, do make a difference, and that's why, for instance, you've seen that we've as a country we've got more women now as board chairs, as board directors, and as board as chief executives. And what we've been doing, a group of us, is to bring these board chairs together, these lady board chairs together. We have regular sessions where we teach them what we have learned, the pitfalls, what you can do, what you can't do. It is astounding how many people in this who are brought into these positions, how much they do not know that they can do. And it's that gap is actually quite critical that it be filled. So individuals, I am afraid, in our situation matter a great deal. and guidance and mentoring of those individuals matter a great deal.
Then I'll take it up and I'll start from just the bottom, the corporation, the workers, then the management, then the oversight and advisory role that the board plays. And you say it's important, it's very, very important that we have people who occupy those offices at board level who really mean well. But then those are political appointees. The appointing authority of these boards is a politician or somebody who at least answers to a politician. Now, maybe that's where the problem begins. That not all our politicians or those who are occupying those political offices mean well.
I beg to differ. There is an unspoken assumption in your question that political appointees or people appointed by politicians are by definition going to be one way or the other inclined. The reality is the following. We've got a very large public sector, extremely large public. The politicians and policymakers will of necessity be involved in it.
Yep.
My experience is that by and large there's actually quite a lot of robust debate as to do we put Charles or do we put Latif. So it doesn't necessarily follow that the fact that a board is appointed by a CS means that that board is appointed purely and completely on the basis that they will do my yes, and it's not as simple as that. I know where this question is leading. It's what many people have been saying, that all these positions ought to be advertised and interviews and so on and so forth. And in principle, no one has any objection to that. But I think we need to get there rather than saying that open up. I don't know how many positions there are. There are 400 odd state corporations. So say 10. So 4,000, no, 40,000 or whatever. Now, 4,000 actually. So maybe we will get there. But who says that an interview process cannot also be
manipulated?
Yes.
Sure. So you think that things need a jumpstart?
Things need this country needs a jumpstart in many places. Yes. And we will not jump to the ideal without a bit of pain here and there.
John, let me ask this question. What is envisioned as being medium term, short term, we've already spoken of medium term and long term goal of ICDC. What is it that you see as this picture of that will represent achievement when you get to it?
Okay. First of all, let me go back and answer a question you have not asked. Why is all this being done? Yes, there's a Parastatal Reform Commission and Reform Committee and so on and so forth. Why is all this being done? It's to me glaringly obvious. Kenya is a very, very, very small country, globally speaking, but which has an incredible lack of location and people. What do I mean? The fastest growing region in the world, and I've said this many times, is becoming like us, a repeated.
It's Ngumiism.
It's a mantra.
The fastest growing region in the world is the Indian Pacific Ocean region. Australia, Japan, China, Indonesia, India, the Gulf, what have you. That whole rim requires resources and requires markets. The one continent with resources and potential market is Africa. How do you get into Africa? Either to sell to Africa or to extract from Africa, or hopefully to manufacture in Africa. You get in through locations. Kenya has the ideal. Kilindini, Mombasa, is great. Lamu is fantastic. It is the deepest water anchorage on the east coast of Africa. If you've been to Lamu Port, it is a straight path, which means the largest ships in the world can dock there, which they can't in Kilindini or Dar or whatever. So if we can get that location story right, then you've got the middle of Africa, what I call middle Africa, where the bulk of Africa's population lives, from Kenya in the east to DRC in the west, and then up to Senegal. What we are trying to do is to make Kenya, is to cement Kenya as the entrance, as a key to exploiting, in the best possible use of the word, Africa. That would be success for me. That we actually do get that. We do get those roads running and rails and others. We will do a railway from Lamu. It is heavy infrastructure. It is not for its own sake, because I've been hearing this talk about we don't eat infrastructure. But without that infrastructure, you will not create the markets and the jobs for people to eat.
So we'll not eat. Without infrastructure, you won't eat. Even if you don't eat infrastructure. There's a question by Guido Jaka who's saying, a question to you, John. Is the SGR still viable now that it appears that the project, the SGR itself, construction, is stuck in Naivasha, and we're now going back to meter gauge railway crossing over into Uganda?
I think that you should give government credit for making adjustments midway. The dream is still the same one, to have an SGR all the way to Malaba and onward to Kampala. But, and again, I've been talking to the MD of Kenya Railways, and we must take you media to see this. You can do SGR to Naivasha. The two stop together. You offload onto an MGR, and it goes. If you accept the principle that the big user of railway will be freight, then it's not a complication. We've managed to, I think, what you call a workaround. The fact that the SGR has not yet reached Malaba, in that we are able to transfer goods from SGR to the MGR.
That isn't a problem. That isn't a problem. Even with the old railway, that was possible.
So what is the problem?
Cost. Anytime you talk about SGR, there's this demon of cost that is always hanging over its head.
On Sunday, I had a long chat with the people who built the SGR. And I asked that question. And there are things I was told which stunned me.
Stun us also with those things.
Have you looked at the SGR and seen that it's built on an embankment?
Yep.
Yes.
All the way.
All the way.
Yes.
Do you know what that does?
I would like to know why that.
Why that?
Yes.
It means that when we get to electrifying the SGR and giving it to the speeds it needs to go at, there are no animals, there are no individuals, there are no people. If you go to Ethiopia, which is mooted a lot by people about its costs, please read about it. Accidents, stoppages. We don't have. So that was a big part of the expense. Putting the rail up rather than, which makes
on
it
the level crossing.
Rather than on the level crossing. Now, I know your mind is saying, yeah, but there was all these issues we are seeing, and the NLC land purchases.
That is precisely what my mind is saying. John is a clairvoyant, in addition to being chairman of ICDC, yes, everybody, and he's spot on. That is exactly where my mind is.
But let me ask you a question then. Does the fact that people did what they did negate the logic behind the SGR?
No.
To my mind, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. I'm saying no. You see, let me explain the thinking. It is not that we do not understand the benefits of these infrastructure problems. It's not it. even the cost of the SGR would not even be a heavy discussion if the economic woes of the citizenry were at the level that they were. Or there would be this constant discussion of shortfalls of projects that ought to be fundamentally at the doorstep of the government. Health, education, just basics. Now, but the key to all this is the absence of a clear explanation.
So what you're driving at really is that if we are going to do an SGR or a pipeline or whatever, let us subject them to rigorous
public participation.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Public participation is one of those phrases that get my hackles up, because what really tends to happen is that you gather 180, they make a bit of noise, and you go on and do
what do you want to do anyway.
And you have a register of 180 that attended.
What you're really asking for is rigor in the analysis by those who should be doing the analysis, which is why some of us pushed very hard in 2015, but it was not taken up, that we create something called Office of Management and Budget. Because as long as projects are originated by the users, the users will originate projects which benefit them.
And they'll own it.
And even this, John, I don't even think necessarily that the citizens I honestly don't think that people want to be belabored by this public participation. I think citizens want to trust. They really want to trust that the responsibility that has been put in the hands of a few is accounted. I think, and they can say, okay, you know what, John and his people are there, we are fine.
And that's why people don't make noise about Thika Road, which was also a pretty expensive project, or KSCC, which was an expensive project for its time.
See, John, if I were to give you a live example, for instance, if I look at the time when you were chairman of the pipeline, and I look at what the pipeline gave to the exchequer before your time, and the amount of money that they were now able to give. So, as a man who understands 1 + 1, I ask myself, so it means the pipeline was able to make this money before this man became chairman. So where was this other money going? It's the perennial question we ask. Now,
that's a question of management.
Yes.
That's a question of a culture of how do you account and steward public resources.
Precisely. Now, the other aspect of it is communicating these things clearly. It can be. It's never communicated. You're stonewalled. And the moment you stonewall, what you've done, you've opened a whole planet of fairy tales. People will come up with whatever explanation suits them to fit into that particular situation.
I think that people, even people in government, know that communication is.
Are you saying they actually know that?
It's horrific. I'll close by showing you something which will surprise you, because it surprised me as well. Because it shows what we have been doing, okay, as a country. And it shows you, where's that map?
It's on page 5.
Do you understand what all these bypasses have been doing? Do you now, if you look at this map, this is it.
Well, I've appreciated the bypasses myself when I use them.
Yep.
I have appreciated them fully.
So now, that takes out that entire center here.
Right.
It gives you the ability to go
round.
To go round Nairobi. Then the second thing that Kenya Railways is trying to do, which is the railway city, is going to sink all these rails in Nairobi and create another 493 acres of land in the CBD. And will link, because Nairobi's main traffic problem is that the marshalling yards have split Workshop Road, Enterprise Road from Haile Selassie. So if you do that, then suddenly Nairobi changes entirely.
Suddenly there's a lot of space available.
Yes.
But now, communication. See all those things?
Tell us. I think.
How many people know what you've just... We see bypasses. Some of us use bypasses.
Nice drive.
But what you've explained is not difficult to understand.
Or even the railway city.
It really is.
We have
not difficult to understand. Even those tall pillars on which you've built the railway. Animals being knocked and elephants jumping over the rail. Not difficult to understand, but it has to be told.
Indeed. John, thank you very much.
Sawa sawa.
Asante sana. John Gumi is chairman of ICDC. Thank you for coming. Come again so that we can now talk about a lot more that you're doing. Yeah. Railway cities, nini, very many things.
There's a
you're
lot
doing.
that we need to talk about, and John, you need to come back again.
Sawa sawa.
Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We've been hosting John Gumi, chairman of ICDC. In the next hour, we now look back into what's happening to our teams in Japan. So, Sevens rugby is out of the Olympics. 3, 1, 2, 3, loss.
They were consistent.
Kuna ndege inakuja afternoon. Anaingia. But we'll be talking about sports management in the next hour. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The family of the late fugitive cop Caroline Kangongo has confirmed that her body has been moved to Eldoret from Iten, where a post-mortem will be conducted later in the day. Last week, an autopsy which had been scheduled to be done at Iten Funeral Home was postponed last minute. The family had said that the burial of Kangongo will take place today at her parents' home in Anin, Keyo North Sub-County. Caroline's father, Barnabas Kibor, broke down in tears on Friday last week after being denied the body of his daughter for the burial.
Mimi naweza piga akaya hapo mpaka lini na wangeniambia tulipanga tangu Jumanne ya kwamba tutafanya leo postmortem, alafu ni nini imetokea na wangeniambia tachara tuairishe, lakini saa hii saa 9 naelekea saa 10 na sijapata mwili. Watu wanataka nani achukue hii mwili? Sawa baba, relax. Lakini sasa wanipe tu niende nishike, wanipe mtoto wangu, sitaki eti hiyo upasuaji.
Parents have continued to plead with the government to ask school heads to be lenient with them, especially now that the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in harsh economic times. The parents have decried hiked school fees charges, high textbook prices and uniform prices, as well as other school requirements.
Tumefinyiliwa. Unaona sasa ile watoto walikuwa nyumbani, hata wengine wamekuwa wakubwa. Mambo ya kulipa school uniform yalikuwa pesa iko juu sana. Sasa tungependa serikali tufukuzie hiyo gharama, tuone kama tutajimundu katika maisha.
Niko na watoto wawili napeleka shule. School fees imepanda. Na ukiangalia sasa hii maisha, serikali yenyewe imetunyanyasa mpaka imeingia kwa mifuko yetu kikuja hii SIDF.
School fees pia ni challenge kwa sababu vitabu zimepanda, school fees nayo ndio iko juu kidogo.
This comes as TSC CEO Nancy Macharia has warned school heads against hiking school fees, saying that those heads who break school fees guidelines will face the full force of the law.
I want to direct that all heads of school stick to the stipulated school fees. The TSC is investigating a few allegations that had been handed over to us by the Ministry of Education that some teachers are not complying with government directive on fees. Action will be taken on those few if they are found culpable.
Security expert Mwende Mbinjiwe has been missing for almost 2 months, but his mother says her sources and her God tell her that he is alive and safe. His mother, Jane Gatwiri, says she is sure her son is alive. She also said that she no longer relies on police to find Mbinjiwe, complaining investigators have taken the family on a wild goose chase. He disappeared on June 12th. This comes as area residents say they'll continue to hold protests every Wednesday until Mbinjiwe is found.
Tunaenda kufunga barabara ndio huyu mtoto wetu apatikane.
Hii jamii haina amani, na sasa tunataka kutangazia county commissioner, tunapea serikali siku 10, ikipita sisi tutakuwa huko kwako na tutakuwa na maandamano.
How can you stay for more than 1 month without even giving us any information, telling us where one of our sons actually is?
Mwenda hata tukipatiwa akiwa amekufa ni sawa, tutamzika sababu ni right yake.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so we're still seeing quite a lot of traffic on Langata Road this morning, getting out to the roundabout at Timor. Bagathi Way, it looks good though. Well, okay, I've lied. It doesn't look too good, especially as you're heading towards the roundabout. Coming out of Chiromo, that's still hot and heavy right around the Museum Hill roundabout. That ramp is still closed. Folks are having to use Mudithi, coming out then towards Thika Road and then joining the CBD through that. Kaloleni. Jogo Road headed out onto Landy, still reading red. Imaradime a little bit there as well. Certain pockets of the city still jam-packed. Muthaiga on Thika Road, forget about it, at least for now. We'll see what happens at about 9 o'clock. Apart from that, doesn't seem too sticky. Talk to us if it does. The bypasses, like we've heard, help you go around the city. Use them. They are your friends. Eastern, Southern, Red Hill, Northern. Use them. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. Keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way.
It is 6 minutes after 9, Kenya's biggest conversation into the final hour of the show this morning. CT, start us off with a proverb. Adverb.
That thing that you just said.
Grammar.
Proverb. A bridge is repaired only when someone falls into the water.
A bridge is repaired only when
someone
falls into the water.
Yes.
John had said something when we were during the break.
Is my contemporary, and in the time when we were young, there was something called Public Works Department in every district.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't wait for a small scratch in the road to become a pothole. They repaired it. So if you grew up in that era, this proverb may not particularly make sense because you're figuring, but at that time, yes, but these aren't the times in which we live. These are the times in which, and in the not too distant past, where a road was repaired when it was known the president was coming to that area.
I say even now, somebody can fall in the water and they still won't repair the bridge.
No, in this day and age. In fact, they may remove the bridge saying this bridge is what caused this person to fall. Because if this bridge wasn't there, this person wouldn't have fallen into the water. So remove the bridge.
Those are the days of MOW.
Yes, that's it.
Ministry
And you
of
see,
Works.
every district and the entire country had districts. And they were resident and they worked within the district. And they did their work.
So their job was to make and repair and maintain.
Yes, they did. The big work of building the roads, yes, there are people who did that, but they maintained it. And then, in our wisdom, the same wisdom we've had in very many things that actually worked, we decided to either let it die.
We have, even now. What we have done is we have, structured it in such a way that, it goes all the way down.
The structuring
from the
isn't-
Ministry of Infrastructure and Roads, and then we have the Kenya National Highways, and then you have the urban roads, and then you have the rural roads.
I don't have a problem with that structure.
And
The
their job is to monitor, observe,
the
see
structure actually
pothole. There's only one pothole. It's not a big
The
issue.
structure actually
when
makes
they become
sense.
10 potholes, now you start contracting.
Eric, the structure even makes sense if you think about it, because you can't have a certain structure that exists ad infinitum, meaning year in, year out. Change is good. The problem is not even this new structure. It is the other culture that we've developed over time where we bastardize every institution. It doesn't matter how good it is. Somehow the demon of corruption has to come in, and it has to make that thing that would have been actually a wonderful thing a horrible sounding thing. It suddenly becomes a swear word, and yet it was actually a good thing. Here we want to talk about sports, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay? A wonderful thing. The management of it, At the national level, goodness, you quake and shake. You wonder what on earth happens. That is, of course, if we are to believe all the scandals we read about.
Or if we just look at, maybe in preparation for today's conversation, things have been happening in Japan. We had a male boxer out, a female boxer out. Kenya's Malaika Stars were beaten in the first game. Malkia. Malaika Strikers. Malkia. Our rugby sevens this morning out. Yeah. So, lack of governance in sports in Kenya is evident. Is it or is it not? And to help us have this conversation is Sylvia Kamau Chola. She joins us now. Sylvia is a former CEO of the Kenya Rugby Union. Now, you've just chosen today to come. As in this morning was the best day for you to come.
I'm regretting. I should have taken the loop back on Mombasa Road and gone back. But as a sportswoman, I'm proud to be seated here. I'm proud to be associated with Shuja. And yes, we will discuss. A lot goes into a sport. A lot goes into that loss that you're seeing Shuja has. So yeah, as we move along, we will discuss.
Like
and I'm
what?
glad you've started with that proverb, because for me, it also sheds a lot of light. Some of the things like Muga is saying, corruption, for me, I'd prefer to use a different word, and is allocation of resources. So
misallocation.
Thereof.
Don't change my words. I say the allocation of resources. Yes. So as we move along, I will try and explain what I mean. And
the time is now.
The time
we are
is
moving
now.
along.
So like he's saying, when we were growing up, I probably am closer to your age than I am to her. And yes, things used to work. And the structure, as Eric said, is still there. But I think our main problem, and it also affects sports, is we have a brilliant structure. If you look at the different teams, and especially these days, where sports people are trying to make a deliberate effort to change the governance of any sport, there's a structure. However, for example, we're given 4 billion to go to the Olympics. How do we allocate that 4 billion? Okay, that's just a figure in top of my mind.
Yes,
it's not
it wasn't 4 billion. Yes, it was just,
but
for example.
How do we allocate that resource? Let's go down to, for example, a team. So I'm coaching, let's say, a basketball team. A basketball team requires what? A head coach, an assistant coach, a team manager, a statistician. And the biggest and the most important group is players. So, for example, you will find that I'm given this as a certain amount of allocation, resource. I choose for this team to go this far from what I have projected. I will use this amount on this amount on this, and this amount of this. And that is where you see that there's always a misunderstanding, aggression about the selection of the people who travel. If you, for example, take the rugby team and tell them that you will not travel with a physiotherapist, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
If you go to another sport, I don't want to mention sports, they will tell you, we will trade a physiotherapist for a statistician. So I think greatly what affects us is that we are unable to efficiently or adequately allocate resources.
So we are under-allocating? Or are we allocating?
In some areas we under-allocate. In some areas we do not allocate at all, or we over-allocate. For example, you'll come and find the issue of players and allowances has always been what brings all the sports to the limelight. If you talk to an average player, they'll think all the money that comes from sponsors should go to them. And that is their way of looking at it. We are the ones playing, we are the ones training the whole day, we are the ones sweating. If there's blood to give, to shed, it's us. So if the sponsor is bringing 30 million, 20 should be for the players. They forget that the back room has people. There's an administrative assistant, there's a PR guy, there's a communications guy, there's facilities. There's all these other things that need to be put in place for this athlete. Shoes. Yes, for this athlete to go to this podium, to go to this stage in the competition and be able to perform.
May I ask, Carol, when you get...
Sylvia.
Did I say Carol?
Yes, the other Sylvia.
But I do this all the time. At least Carol's a reasonable name. I could have called you Phil Goner. Then you would have had something serious to deal with. Yes. Yes. So, what is the name again?
Sylvia.
Okay.
Ochola.
Okay. Silva. When you get money from your sponsors, I am certain that you detail what you need the money for, even if you are pushing and you're looking for this money. Now, is this communicated to these people who want everything? Are they told, folks, we are going to look for money from Kenya this, United this, International this, and this is what we're looking, and this is how we have structured what we're looking for, because they will give you this for administration, they'll give you this for the players, they'll give you this for equipment that you need. Am I on the right track here, or have I missed it somewhere?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, for instance, all the relevant people in this setup, are they all informed? Are they all on the same page, or is it that those in charge have the information and they told us, now, the moment details aren't given from what John Gumi, the gentleman you met here, we had, as we were tapering off the discussion, that's what we're telling him, that, you are explaining things that could have been explained to us by other people a long time ago. Part of the reason why people have a problem with their government is because they don't understand, and the government doesn't understand that they need to communicate.
Yes.
At least that's the impression you get. Now, sports management and those in charge, do they get this? Do they understand this? And do they do it? Do they communicate? Is it something that everyone involved understands? Does everybody understand the same thing?
I'm very glad that you're leading me on this conversation, because you're speaking my mind. When you talk about, from your proverb and from the culture that it is in Kenya, when we were growing up, my mother never explained to me why she prefers to cook skuma wiki today and not tomorrow. Why she chose to make chapatis for us for Christmas and not any other day. I'd have loved to have them every day. When you ask what does she do, she tells you eat what is there. That is the Kenyan culture, right from our government. We do not get answers unless you fight for the answers. We see these changes happening. And for sports people and for the sports environment, I can attest to the changes. If you look at the different organizations, right from the top of the organizations, the sports environment is beginning to change, because we're starting to involve and incorporate people who didn't necessarily play sports. When I was growing up into sports management, I played a sport, so I was a bit lucky. But I've seen people who've come into the sports environment trying to make it like an administrator, a coach, or later in life, you realize, actually, I can break through to a sports, and you start learning one or two things. And there was always that thing of, how kucheza his sport, so you'll be put aside. A marketer can come from the private sector, and their services and their expertise is invaluable in sports. Let's take, for example, NOC. NOC is led by National Olympics Committee. It's led by Dr. Tergat. The other day, he's a professional. We cannot start talking about his resume right now. The other day, he was re-elected into the IOC. Why is the IOC re-electing him? Because they realize that he is actually a proper professional in this area. Despite him being an athlete, he's an athlete on his own, and he built it. But in terms of sports management, he has led NOC in the direction that we all looked at. Look at the backdrop of which he took NOC from, where the coaches would be wearing the tracksuits, all the tracksuits, and their people at home, and the players would be walking around in one T-shirt. Look at it these days. Every team going out, even to a small competition, as long as you're representing Kenya, you're well kitted by Kenya. So if you look at, there's something called sports management. We've also, in our academic structure and environment, most universities in Kenya have embraced sports management. When we have universities now picking sports management as an academic angle, it means by the time I'm getting to the sport to become a sports administrator, before I even play a sport, or even if I'm an athlete, I already have the tenets of being you're laughing. You don't believe me.
It's not that I don't believe you. It's where my mind went to. Because when I was doing my undergraduate work at Kenyatta, it was at Kenyatta University College then, they offered something akin to sports management. But you know what you used to call it? PE.
Yes.
Professor Moni Wekesa was among the first people to actually study PE, as we called it then, and proceeded to actually have a PhD in PE. I don't think, hey, man, do you really need a PhD to just jump up and down?
You see, and that's the mentality. That is the mentality that we have led sports with over the years.
Yes.
That's the mentality we have led sports of. My mother doesn't still believe I do sports. She still frowns at me. Last week when we came from Rwanda and she saw me on TV, she called me and told me, hey, seen you on TV, you're still on this sports thing. If you had asked her...
Meaning, can you get a serious
yes,
career?
Can you get something serious to do? Even when I went to campus and I still went back to the sports, she asked me, you've gone back to this thing. So you see, when we change our mentality in the way we look at sports, and these days we are having very many courses, short courses, where we teach governance, we teach finance, leadership, and all those things. If you look at, for example, just one last example. If you look at World Rugby, for example, they insist that players must have a certain qualification, that's level 1, of either coaching, refereeing, something technical about the game. The reasoning behind this is to raise the IQ of the player. So that when the calls are being made, it's not the typical us. Unatuambia nini. When the other thing that most federations and unions around the world, and especially in Kenya, are embracing is having courses, financial courses, marketing courses, talking about brand for athletes. Because now when we start talking about the brand, the athletes understand my brand as an athlete starts from here, ends here. And the brand of the sport for the union or for the federation starts from here and ends here. And this is where we will have to work together. So that when, let's say Kenya Tourism Board comes and says, we will have our logo on your shirt, you're not saying, okay, now that I'm the one running around with it, I am the one who owns the rights to it. Yeah. So we are all in a space where we are learning, and I think it's a learning curve. And you can see improvements.
How are you people addressing this Kenyan culture that you the explanation you gave was perfect? The mother cooking. You see, again, generationally, I'm certain you don't manage your children the same way your mother managed you. You probably talk a lot more. In a certain generation, we were talked to. We were instructed. Yes. You spoke every once in a while. There was space for that.
And Sly, just in addition to that, because I look at this, and here we are with this mentality, this attitude, but we are taking this sport to a global scale, on a global level, whereby we are competing against countries who are supporting this same sport from the time a child can walk. Whether we're talking about swimming, by the time a child is 2 years old, the basketball is in their hand. They're flipping on a mat somewhere. Something is being done. It's being supported at the family unit. It's being supported at the national level. And we're taking this attitude with our athletes and our sportsmen and women and going to compete in Tokyo, for example. How is it supposed to play out?
But that athlete has been running since they were young.
With the kind of support that Sylvia is talking about when your mother is seeing you on the screen in Kigali asking you what you are doing there. No.
You see, and that is where
and then you expect to compete and surpass expectations.
Again, I go back to my main thing I said allocation of resources. Take, for example, Ministry of Education. They have a sports department. But like you said, they consider it PE. In 2019, we saw the Ministry of Education reduce resources that were meant to go to sports. And one of the things they did, like for the rugby in the nationals, they reduced the number of players. An ideal team in rugby must have, like the sevens, must have 12 players and probably a 13th player. They reduced that to 9.
9?
Yes, 9 athletes.
So you have 2 reserves only?
Yes. One of the excuses, sorry to use the word, but to me was an excuse, was one, too many children are out of school to go and participate in games and they're missing out on class. Secondly, it is the amount of resources or money allocated for sports. It didn't just happen to rugby, it happened to all the sports. So basketball needs 5 people on the field. We usually take 12. They said 8 would be enough for you. Now, if we're doing that at a national level, this is the Ministry of Education. Do you think it is going to, like, for example, what she's saying, is there a basketball available in my estate? Okay, let's not use my estate because there are basketballs there provided by myself. And all the kids come running around. But it is the county government is supposed to make sure that we have fields where kids can play. And in those fields, there has a basketball, there's a soccer ball. When you travel out in Europe and all other places, you find outdoor gyms. Free of charge. And the facilities and equipment are there. But does that happen in Kenya? No. How do most people get into sports if you talk to them?
What will surprise
It's just
you?
passion. They call it passion,
Yes.
talent.
Yes.
Passion.
Got a talent,
First is passion. Yes.
Then talent. Then I was discovered. Then I was just found my way. Either I was supported by a parent or a teacher.
The question I want to ask is, so you're saying that, for instance, the National Olympic Committee, Kenya National Olympic Committee, they have moved to the point where the athlete is the most important person, because for the longest time, the officials were more important than the athlete. Has that changed? Has that changed in other sports as well, where officials understand that without the athletes, they are actually nothing?
It actually has changed. And I don't like to look at sports or a team. Like, for example, when you look at Shuja, I don't like to look at Shuja and say, Shuja is about the players. The players are 12. Who makes the Shuja athletes as fit as they are? There's an SNC. Who makes sure that their injuries are taken care of and their return to play time is reduced? There's a physiotherapist. For example, who makes sure that their visas, their tickets, their passports are ready, their papers are ready, their COVID protocols are followed? There's an administrator.
Sylvia, I agree with you completely.
Yes.
But all these things are being done for the athletes.
Yes,
you
for
understand what I'm
the
saying?
athletes,
You see what I'm-
yes.
What I mean is, you've just described what I'm saying.
Yes.
You've understood their importance. So all these things are being done so that when they get onto the pitch, they do what they're supposed to do. Yes.
Actually, what you think to say is this, that what most federations, organizations, and maybe the political organizations for sports we have moved, most of them are moving from a point where the elective body, which is the executive, was running the federation. If you look at most of these organizations, even NOC, they're slowly moving and are allocating resources to the right places. And we are slowly having federations and unions having a secretariat. When you have a secretariat, it means the elected person is free to do what brought them to the body, which is what? Networking.
Sylvia, let me make my point clear. There's a point I'm trying to make here.
Yes.
Okay. In the absence of this athlete, this rugby player, the runner, all these other people, these service providers will have no work.
Yes. Obsolete, yes.
Yes. Now, what am I saying? Let me leave rugby aside because I have an interest in rugby.
Yes.
So I'm biased. Okay. Let me look at football. Okay.
For example, yes.
Now, a lot of money exists within football. The World Federation that run football give us money for developing football. Do you see that organization developing football? We hear of Ligidogo, but those are like private organizations. Do you see a government effort or within those structured bodies where there is a structure of, we have a clinic for football for young people, we have a this for... Do we see it? The Ministry of Education competitions that we see being run, those are Ministry of Education competitions. What am I saying? The officials are more important than the athletes. You see the point I'm trying to make? So that I used to ask myself why people fight so hard to be officials in these organizations.
It's a business.
That's what I realized, that there's a lot of money, and I'm talking about football specifically. And football as a sport is not being developed. I don't see how it is that our football just seems to be stagnant. And I know a lot of money is brought into football, but it's still stagnant. It means those who run it, again, are more important. The money ends up going predominantly to them, more in my mind, than to the people who made, not paying the player. That's what I'm talking about. The development of the sport and ensuring that it gets to the level that it should get to.
So those who are running it don't have the best interest of the sport at heart. They're in it to make money.
That's what has taken them. They talk loudly about the interest they have in the sport, but
they don't.
The actions, if the actions were there, then we would see the sort of proliferation of players like we see in West Africa.
All those things that we are saying, though, I want to take it up to the ministry.
Yes.
At the Ministry of Sport, all those things, we are saying, people who understand the financial management, understand the technical side of sport, understand everything about sport. Do we have those people managing the policy of sport at the ministry?
That's a tough question, but I think there is a policy of sports, sports policy, because I have read it. And like Muga is saying, there's no better platform to grow the sport than through the government. Reason being, away even from the sports, if there was a cooperation, a coordination between the Ministry of Sports and Education, every school would act like an academy, like he says, and especially for like soccer, because soccer is loved. Every boy who grows up is always playing sports. But back again, we have the structure. Do we have the resources to do this? Are we using the resources?
I'm asking about the people in the ministry, and this is very direct.
You see,
the people in the Ministry of Sport, now it's called Sports and Culture because they are considered the same thing. It's those things that you guys do. Do we have the right people, Commissioner of Sports and the rest, people who understand what sports management requires or development of our sports requires? Or is it people who are then in those offices, they have gone through school, they did PE up to whatever level, but they just look at it from that side of, it's sport, we make money out of it.
This Ministry of Sports, how far does it get to the ground? Like, for example, in your home counties, do you know where you can find the sports office?
No, I don't.
No. Thank you.
But I know something.
What?
That at the national level, the ministry plays a role in looking at the management of the federations and the unions.
At the national level, and that is where we go wrong in the sports environment.
And those federations and the unions are the ones that then will have a critical role to play at the ground.
Yes. The way we look at sports in Kenya and against the backdrop of the world is we start sports at the top. So Sylvia grows up, makes herself all that she can. She gets to that point where she's seen nationally, and now she becomes a star to everybody, and she's taken care of to go to the Olympics. Take Yego, for example. Learned his own trade through YouTube. When he became big is when now the government took him. And that is what we do with all our resources in the country, despite the environment, despite the sector, whether it is whatever. We started nationally as opposed to starting it from the ground. Different federations, like you said, soccer. Soccer has a lot of money. Okay. From an envious point of view of being in a different sport.
They do have a lot of money.
They have a lot of money. But what are the things they do? Do they have grassroots programs that are run, like he said, by the federation itself? Not by individuals, but by the federation itself. Does the world body in soccer hold soccer locally accountable for having grassroots programs? In some federations and some unions, I know they are. And the funding that comes to you is solely dependent on what you're doing in the grassroots. So I think what we need to do is, first and foremost, start from the bottom.
But who starts at the bottom, Sylvia?
Both.
That's why I'm bringing the government into it.
The government has two wings in which they can use efficiently to help sports to get to the top. Ministry of Education, because every school can act like a training center or an academy. For any sport. There's a time we had a program that was run by UNICEF and Ministry of Education, and every holidays they used to get talented children in whatever sport, and they camp in a particular center. But what happened to that again? The resources were, again, I choose my words, allocated elsewhere. Not where they were supposed to be allocated. And the program died. But that was a very good idea, because what they used to do during the term, they would go around the schools and check out and see, in Nakuru, we have this good girl, we have this one, we have this one. In April holidays, we'll take them to Nairobi, and they'll spend a month in the camp, in the UNICEF camp, training their sport. Not necessarily because they're good, but because you've seen they can actually become. Yes, you nurture something.
Yes.
So they would bring national team coaches who'd share something with them. Such programs can be run by the Ministry of Education. But what is the Ministry of Education doing with sports, or he called them PE? They've decided they're extra curricular. They're supposed to be core curricular, not extra. When you term them extra, when the cook hasn't been paid, what will they do? Take pesa ya soccer, lipa cook, you know.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, what happens? This child decides, you know what? Let me go and read physics. Yeah, and sports is actually a career.
Yep.
It's a profession.
And they have a talent that now is subdued.
Yes,
because of
26 minutes to 10. Let's take a break and take a look at the traffic and weather, and then we continue the conversation with Sylvia Kamau-Chola. She is a former CEO of the Kenya Rugby Union. Sly was a thorough basketballer, and she understands it very well. That's what Humphrey Slade is saying. Was.
Yes. There's a shelf life for every athlete, and I'm past my due date. But I'm still in basketball. I still coach. I'm an active coach. Currently, I'm the head coach at Equity Bank Ladies. They're the current national champions, and I'm not bragging.
And of course not.
We came back from Rwanda last week, and we won the Afro basketball qualifiers with the ladies national team. They're called the Lionesses. So I'm not really. I just changed what I'm doing in the sports. Yes.
Very good. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
The 2020 school calendar year is finally complete, and schools are about to start the new calendar year. Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Monique, to find out how Naivas is helping parents and guardians ease the costs of back-to-school shopping with the Tuko Rada Kurudi Tena campaign, with the best deals and offers for back-to-school shopping countrywide.
Have you seen am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
The weather.
All right, cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 14, highs of 22, lows of 13 today. Cloudy at 12 in Nyeri, highs of 18. We'll see highs of 21 in Nakuru. It's cloudy at 14 and mostly cloudy at 15 in Eldoret, highs of 21 and lows of 14. 28 will be the high in Kisumu. It's partly sunny at 23. Partly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 22 to go to highs of 26 today. 28 will be the high in a partly sunny Mombasa at 27. It rains in Malindi at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 24. We'll see lows of 18 in Kampala, where it's cloudy at 24. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 24 with highs of 30. Will come down to lows of 21. All right, slightly warmer in Johannesburg at 7. We'll see a low of 2 today, highs of 15. Mostly sunny at 24 in Lagos. 29, that will be the high for today. 30 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's partly cloudy, actually mostly cloudy at 21. Rain showers continue in Beijing. Monsoon season yet to end. 28 the high and lows of 23. Rain showers in Paris at 18, highs of 21. It's sunny at 17 in London. At 22, that'll be the high, recorded lows of 16. Clear conditions now in New York. Early Tuesday morning, highs of 32, lows of 22.
Spice and everything nice. All right, okay.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so what does it look like now? Still hot and heavy in some parts of the city. Still see some traffic right around the roundabouts of City Mortuary. They're coming off Ngong Road, coming off of Langata Road as well, joining with Bagavi Way. Still a little bit of traffic, then feeding onto Landis and into the CBD. Some also coming out of Westlands, right around Chiromo. But nothing major right now. It looks pretty good. Well done. Hopefully it stays that way through the rest of the day. If it changes, let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. right. 94.4 Spice
All right,
FM.
22 minutes to 10. The conversation continues with Sylvia Kamau-Ochola, a sports lady in very many ways. So you're a former CEO of Kenya Rugby Union, you're in sports management, you're a coach, and all these other things. And we're talking about looking at Kenya's performance at the ongoing Olympics in Japan, where our rugby team, 7 are out. Our ladies basketball team is going to be playing its second match today. But those girls are good, though. Those girls are going to beat, I told you.
They'll beat South Korea.
South Korea?
Okay.
Today?
Strikers.
Burukenge.
345.
Burukenge. Okay. You wait and see.
The Malkia are solid. They're used to being on the international space. So they're able. And when you look at the players, you have the familiar faces, you can call them veterans who've played the international stage. So I think they'll make an impact. Yeah.
But looking overall, does what we see in Japan, what we saw in Rio, what we've seen in other Olympics, is it a reflection of our own mismanagement of sports in the country? Is it a lack of understanding of what needs to be done? Is it a refusal to do what needs to be done? Or is it a combination of all those things?
I think we put a lot of emphasis on one event, and we tend to judge a team by one event. Olympic is a highlight of everybody's, athlete, anyone in sports. And you would want to perform well in the Olympics. But when you look at the Olympics is not an event where next year we're going for Olympics, so let me start now.
Yeah.
Olympics is a process. It's a journey. If we want some of this, if you look at some of the big countries that perform well in Olympics, if you look at their athletes, their journey starts from way young.
Absolutely.
Way young. Now, look at our teams. And for example, right now everybody's bashing Shuja. I don't think there's a reason to bash Shuja. When was the last time Shuja played at that international scene? We've not had the circuit. For how long? From 2019. Those boys have not been on that scene. They've had, what is it called? They've had friendlies. But if you look at the way the friendlies were structured, a friendly is not as structured as a competition. There's a muscle memory for competition. These boys needed to have been in the stage to be playing like that for that long. When you look at, for example, the USA team, what kind of resources do they put behind this?
Sure.
Some of these teams, like for example in 2018 when we went for the Commonwealth Games in Australia, Gold Coast, some of the teams, and like for example in rugby, like the Australian rugby team had 2 teams, one participating in the circuit and one purely preparing and to participate in the Commonwealth.
Whoa.
But aren't we seeing a situation? Aren't we also seeing a situation where these things are being made professional? So
yes,
the players are training where it could seem as if it's something that they do in their spare time, but it actually is not. The way you wake up and go to work,
thank you,
in a corporate job, is the way these players are waking up and they're training most of the day, and they're being paid by their governments and supported clubs to do this job. So it's your job. What do you do for a living? I'm a rugby player. That's what I do. I'm a basketball player. But that's what we see, that it has been professionalized so that your needs are then taken care of by the job that you do. Here, you have Helen Obiri, who is running the marathon, but her day job is that she works for Kenya Prisons.
Yes. So
she's got an 8 to 5 or whatever, and then she's got to cater for herself. Get a coach here, do this, because she sees she has a talent. She'll do it.
Remember, like we said, the Olympics is a journey. So we had prepared for Olympics last year. The kind of preparation that maybe the US team was doing then in 2019 did not stop necessarily because of COVID. If you look at some of our some of our economies, we were almost shut down. So if the full economy was shut down in Kenya because of COVID protocols, what happened to sports? We went back to our couches.
Yep.
This is an athlete who's been performing at this level and has gone suddenly, and for like 3, 4, 5 months,
Not
they're
moving.
sitting.
It's even longer than that.
Yes, they're idling.
Gyms
now,
closed, everything.
I cannot blame the Ministry of Sports in this preparation. They have done their best. They actually had bubble centers. The biggest bubble center they had was Kasarani. But Kasarani could not take care of all those athletes. So they were going in what are they called? In schedules. Like the rugby team goes for 21 days in camp, breaks, allows Malkia to come, breaks, like that. Do you think all the other bigger economies are doing the same thing? Of
course not.
They were not doing that. So I think we've done well. We should have performed better because we've seen Shuja perform in the international stage and do wonders. Yeah, but I think this is as a result of what we've just been going through. Sport, what you see, the gold medal is not a result of today I wake up and I'm like, I'll run very hard and I'll be fitter and tomorrow I'll have the gold. No, it's a process.
Which is
it's
why I'm like a dog with a bone with this particular issue. The ministry, at the top level, if our political leadership and our national leadership does not consider sport an important thing, sport is that thing that you keep people busy with. Sport is that thing that you engage the youth with, during political campaigns. You come up with a small tournament here so that the youth can
Throw
come
a couple of t-shirts in the
and they'll
direction.
vote for you. If that is reflected in the Ministry of Sport, where conversation about how can we revamp the Moi Sports Center, Kasarani, how can we make sure that sports center is actually a center of excellence, and then we have other centers around the country where a campaign promise such as Stadia can just pass. And they let it pass because, well, it's not a big deal.
Nobody was really listening.
That's the issue. It's at the national level.
Eric, and you're very right in this. And the sports policy has, it's detailed, it has all those things. What our national government is not doing is taking that policy and implementing it to the last letter. Because, for example, it's not enough for the government to build for us stadiums. They built a stadium in Kisumu. Is it available to you and I? No. Is it available to the little girl who wants to play for the Harambee Starlets in 10 years? No, it's not. That girl will see that stadium probably out of the country when she now gets to take the plane and out of the country.
Yeah.
So where are we going wrong in that?
One handshake stadium doesn't solve the problem. No.
Thank you.
Not really. What it does, it shows you what could have been done with other counties, and we appreciate that. However, what Eric is saying, that particular bone he's stuck with, I'm going to have to share it with him. Because government has policy, government has ministry.
Yes.
Eric's not mentioning government, he's saying ministry.
Ministry.
And I'm back again with ministry. Because at whatever levels, if you're talking about schools, Ministry of Education, you're talking about sports organizations, these people do their bit. But there's a bit that now the bigger umbrella body takes it up. The reason why athletics works, it's not a team sport.
It's not a team sport,
yes. But everybody has their trainer.
If you've ever been to Nandi County, I'm speaking about Nandi County specifically, and seen how these people train, my goodness, you don't just win that thing easily. Morning, lunchtime, evening.
But even that CT is not coordinated by the ministry. It's individuals who have realized they have a talent.
That's the point.
And they're insisting on saying,
and the private sector.
And the private sector
has supported them.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But here you are and you have this massive talent that is recognized the world over, but still not able to harness it. I don't understand.
Because
why
we
it
do
cannot
not want
be
to go
done.
to the grassroots, like Eric is saying. We do not want to follow it down. The ministry handles sports at a national level. You run on the streets of Nandi, then when you're good, we will see you.
Yeah.
Yes, but it should be the other way around.
But you know why we will see you? You now become a resource.
Yes.
A huge financial
Financial
resource. It's not that the ministry doesn't see it. I'm going back now. This is my pet subject, okay? The national disease, okay? The national pandemic. Because there is money involved in sports, okay? Now, when I say sports, I'm not talking about athletics. I'm talking about motorsports. I'm talking about horse. Think of any sports.
Horse what?
Horse riding.
Horse jockeying.
Horse jockeying, yes. That one. Going race course. Now, all these things involve money. And so long as there's money, the ministry will show an interest. They'll come up with this blueprint, and the blueprints are beautiful.
Yes.
Those things are there to hoodwink us, to give us the impression that they actually intend to do something. But it's just to show you so that when they explain where the money went to, they use that blueprint to explain it to you. But in essence, very little of what they say actually gets done. It's not just the government's allocation to the ministry. These sports have those international bodies contributing huge sums. They do.
It's true.
Why have I brought motorsports into it? The reason why it's such a big hoo-ha is not just that people getting into their cars and racing around. No. Sponsorship, money involved.
Yep.
And if you look at our legislation right now, money spent in sports up to a certain level with this new finance bill is tax deductible. So you'll see organizations X, Y, Z being involved in sports. Those are people who've understood. Others haven't fully grasped it, but they've understood that if I spend this money in sports,
then I get my rebates.
I can get my rebates. So they spend. Now, those who aren't spending, clearly, either this particular narrative hasn't gone to them, Injili haijaingia vizuri. But when it gets to them, you'll find even more people sponsoring sport. Why do you find these huge betting companies spending the money they do in sponsoring it? They've got it.
They've got it.
They've understood it.
Sly, would it take? Because what we know happens, if again, we have to go back and use examples the world over. We have children who are that talent is nurtured at a very, very young age, not just in one place, but across countries. You have countries who are put on the world map because somebody from there did some fantastic thing in a sport, and the country came to be known as a result of it. What needs to happen in Kenya, and what would you visualize that needs to happen here for that to become a reality? For children across, you might find that we saw the example of a young boy the other day who runs to school behind athletes.
Yes.
And then they say, actually, you know what? Something can be done to nurture this kind of talent, which is clearly evident. What needs, aside from the allocation of resources, what needs to happen to say, can this be a culture that can then be nurtured?
First and foremost, I think you've answered the question. We should make sports a culture amongst us. Way from the family setting to the government setting. You know, everybody understands. So my grandmother understands that my child needs sports. Secondly, we need to get grassroots programs, both run by corporates, private or government, so that a child, as I am growing up, the way I'm exposed to being a doctor, to being a pilot, to being this, I am also exposed to the fact that I can actually be a professional athlete. And even if I don't make it to be a professional athlete, I can be a sports administrator, a sports manager, and it pays. We need to also glamorize that sports actually is an employment, a career, a profession. At the break, I was talking to Muga and I was telling him, sports offers networking that doesn't necessarily come from, even at the highest of places. Again, we go back and use Dr. Tergat. The places he has been, he could have probably gotten there if he was a president of a country. But look at where he is. In some of these places, the athletes go there and they are more valued than some presidents. So we need to highlight.
And many presidents, not some, many. Please continue.
So we need to highlight and we need to show clearly that sport is not michezo, is not kurukaruka. It's not that thing you tell kids when they're disturbing me in the house. Hey, mommy, go enter into cheze. It's not that thing. No, sports is a career. And especially for ladies, because women, for some reason, we think that I can play rugby.
Bulk up and become manly.
But my body can actually just look, as strong as I want it to look. So we need to start it as a culture. After we've done it as a culture, we need to bring it up within the system, the different systems that are available to kids growing up. Different, all of them, the health sector, the education, the Ministry of Sports. We need to bring it up constantly and tell them. You see the effort we put on the girl child.
Yep.
We need to do that. Sports.
But you are so spot on. Look at the Olympics right now. The lady by the name of Flora Duffy, comes from Bermuda. I knew Bermuda because of the so-called Bermuda Triangle and the stories around it. The individual women's triathlon, first gold that country of 63,000 people has ever had. So everybody knows who she is now. Even I do.
And now you know that Bermuda is more than a triangle.
I know.
Actually, it's not
they
do
a
place in
triathlon.
the ocean. There's land.
There's land where people run. So all I'm saying is, you are right. This one athlete has given that country more spotlight than even a coup d'etat could.
To the best of your knowledge, is this captured in the new CBC? Because yes, we know there's emphasis now on not just looking at just academic excellence. There's also looking at other excellence that a learner may have. And that's why we're saying when you go into senior school, there's the arts, there's the sciences, is it well captured such that as kids are going through grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, even early in the kindergarten, sport is part of what they're learning, is core curricular, not extra?
Okay, as we started off by saying, the structures are always right. In the structure, if you look at it, it is. It is captured. Okay, not as well and it's not articulated so well, but it is there. There's the awareness of it. But do we do it physically?
Can I ask a question? Please go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So I'll give it, the CBC is for all students, all children in the country.
Yeah.
Some of these schools don't have classes and they study under trees. So at what point will the sports even be talked about?
Thought about.
So some of these schools don't have enough teachers. At what point are they going to come and get Sylvia from Nairobi to go and talk to the girls in whichever primary school and tell them this is how sports management, it's not going to be, the resources are not going to be allocated there. If they get the money, they're going to tell you, no, let's build a library and not that soccer field.
Yeah.
What will happen in the CB, it is captured, but the situation on the ground is that soccer will be played at break time by those kids now because they don't have anything else to do at break time. There's no food to carry. They'll kick around the ball and come back. So we need to not only write it down, like he said, the blueprints, we need to make an effort on it. So that is where, like, for example, I know that there's some federations and unions that actually go to the grassroots and do those programs for their different sports to introduce the sports in the grassroots. And they don't do it in the big cities or like Nairobi. Okay, they do it to a certain level, but not. They'll go down to like, for example, most, I think, players come from the western side of Kenya. So you'll find that there's some organizations will also shift from that side to this other side of the country because we can't get a Kikuyu like me who's good at sports. So they actually go to the grassroots and they have programs they run during holidays. But is that enough?
Yeah.
Is that enough? And how much time is it going to take before my resources, I think my resources are getting depleted and I'm not getting a return.
Yeah, there's no replacement.
And at the grassroots, there's not so much return. Yeah. That is why everybody's waiting for the cake at the top here. Because now there's icing. Everybody wants the icing. Nobody wants to come and break the eggs and start doing it.
There's something that bothers me and has been bothering me about this new system. I look at the demands of the curriculum and I ask the question, one teacher per class, is that really going to cut it? Some of these schools that you see doing well, they have a teacher and an assistant. And then the students are not more than 20, just so that you understand.
Yes.
So all these things you want of the child, you are able to do because you have the resources. The resource here being the human resource. Yeah. Okay. Most government schools do not have 20 students per class, 50 onwards. Okay. Yeah. One teacher. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It'll take us a long while.
I'm speaking as a former teacher and I'm saying the demands that are required of that system requires more than one teacher per class.
And then that one teacher will be strained of time to cover everything. What do they do? 4:30 to 6 p.m. is supposed to be games time. What do? They
extend.
Prep time.
Extend. Tuition, extra.
Yeah, they do extra things. So I'm seated here and I'm thinking, okay, do I need to pass my exams or do I need to go and kick a ball?
Pass my exams.
Pass my exams because my mom is waiting for me at home with a rungu. If I don't pass my exams and I've come home with a medal in soccer, there's a problem.
Nilikutuma shule
so
kucheza.
Nilikutuma shule kucheza. So there needs to be a cultural change in the way we look at sports. Totally.
Sylvia, so as we conclude, looking forward into what we expect to see in the Olympics, and just tell us your own feeling of Kenya's expectations. What should we expect?
I think like a real Kenyan, we have a lot of armchair critics. And when we sit on the chair, like when I sit here, I'm very comfortable. It's hot and warm. I can say anything. I think we need to cut some slack to the athletes and support them. Small example experience. When we went to Rwanda, we lost our first game to the hosts, that's Rwanda, by over 20 points. It's a huge margin. She knows basketball. It's a huge margin. And there were a lot of naysayers. And this kind of things, attacks on social media, attacks on the players themselves, does not give a player a comfort zone to play. A player needs their psychological part tip-top for them to be able to play well. So the Olympics, I think we're going to have mixed emotions, some highs, some lows. And I think the reason behind this, for me, why we might not expect a great performance there is because of the protocols the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
It has taken the athletes back quite a lot. Yeah.
So we should cut them some slack.
Cut them some slack.
Whatever happens, let's welcome them back and tell them, good stuff. You represented us.
Yes. Niwe too.
Thank you very much, City. She will remind us today's proverb tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Aye. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room. We've had a conversation with Sylvia Kamau Chola on Kenya Sports. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. Have a lovely day.
Spice up your life.
The news at the top of the hour